Hello, and welcome to Big Witch Energy, the podcast that journeys into the wonderful and witchy world of Motherland, Fort Salem. We're going to recap and discuss all of the delicious content in every episode. I'm Bree.
And I'm Theora.
Come along with us while we dive deep into the hows, whys, whos, and what of this amazing show.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is episode 4. Hail Beltane.
So it's spring, everybody.
It is springtime, and we'll get into all of that. But it's Beltane, guys. It's official. So this episode was written by, we have a new crew for episode 4. This is Christopher Oscar Pena, and our director, I'm going to butcher this. I am so sorry. Haifa Al-Mansour.
No, you were pretty on it, man.
Was I pretty on it?
Yeah.
Sweet. I did not practice that, so you heard it here first, folks.
Man, that's talent. First timer.
First time's a charm. So yeah, that's our crew for this time, and honestly, the directing of this one's very, very good. So good on you.
Oh my gosh, it is.
So this episode kind of picks up a little bit after where our last episode ended, where Raylla tried to save Porter and she essentially passed out from everything. And so she wakes up in the infirmary, basking in her golden light, but she's not, she's been through it, you could tell. Like, she has bags under her eyes, and she's still like reliving the trauma from trying to save Porter and the linking they underwent. Like, his memories are kind of like filtering in and out as she's coming to consciousness. She's hearing herself give the Christian prayer and screaming, "Somebody help," and Porter's memories saying, "I want the truth." So she's very panicked and confused, like when she wakes up, which is totally understandable. And the first person she sees in the infirmary is Mama Costia, who says, I guess her catchphrase on Rails in the infirmary, you could have died. Why does this keep happening?
We need to drink every time Mama Costia says you could have died to Raylla.
I think Lesbian Jesus needs to hydrate every time Mama Costia says that to her.
That's true.
For her own health, you know?
I agree.
So, Lesbian Jesus, you hydrate, because this keeps happening.
Stop trying to die, Raylla.
Elliot, stop traumatizing Raylla. First of all.
Good luck with that.
No, it doesn't ever happen. So, Raylla, after Mama Costia gives her catchphrase, she sits up, and her first instinct is to, like, apologize, which is interesting. And it's very different. It's different from the first time she apologized to Mama Costia, like, after she got her demerit. She's like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry," like, with her sass, the half-ass apology. But this time she's very like, "I'm sorry," which, Raylla, like, you have nothing to be sorry.
Don't apologize for that.
Right, exactly. And that's what Mama Costia said. She's like, "We're really proud of what you just did. Why are you apologizing?"
And Raylla's just in guilt land over here.
Yes. So Taylor Hickson talks about that in the After the Storm. So not saving Porter is this big guilty weight that weighs on her, and she blames herself for not being able to save him. And so she's feeling this like disappointment right now because in her mind, she's not as good of a fixer as her mother was. And like being a good fixer is the one legacy from her like mother's army career she was trying to like actually actively uphold. So this feels like a personal failure to Raylla. And Elliot even comments like it's very this is a humbling experience from her where she's facing her limits of what she can do. And so this is a big like world shift to Raylla, because we saw her like heal civilians who weren't dying, and like it was very successful for her, but this was like reality striking for Raylla in a very harsh, traumatic, abrupt way. So she is feeling very guilty. That is correct.
And then, like, how she actually, I don't know, it's almost like she was panicked in the moment. So I think that's a big part of why things didn't go better than they did with her healing.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like, to use like a war fighting metaphor, like when the rookie first goes to battle for the first time, it's one thing to train for it in a controlled environment. It's a whole nother thing to be in the battle and have to perform. So she had like performance anxiety a little bit too.
Well, not only that, she wasn't actually in a battle. She was walking to her girlfriend's barracks room, and then all of a sudden this guy falls out of the sky. So,
well, yeah, I mean it in the sense that like she's never healed somebody who was actively dying in front of her. Like she was like removing a boil that was just like painful and annoying. Like this was like death, and like, okay, save the dying person. And it's like, what? Like, that's traumatizing when you're not ready for it.
What I mean is like she was even extra not prepared.
No, totally. Yeah. So Raylla, views this as a personal failure, even though she went above and beyond what she was supposed to do, which is what everybody else sees. So Raylla can't see that herself right now. And so Mama Costia says the line like, that kind of bravery you just exhibited can't be taught. So like that was Raylla's first instinct, was to just try and save this person that was actively dying by doing her magic that transfers the dying onto her. So she was brave without even trying to be. So good on you, Raylla.
I just have to mention that anytime Rael goes into the whole Porter Visions thing, the only phrase that pops into my head is, "Oh no, that freaky deaky Porter stuff is back."
Yes. So why does that keep happening? So they talk about so this is the first time we see linking fixing
Mm-hmm.
in this show, and this will come up again and again. But basically, the way this works is when they link, the two bodies join together, and when the consequence of that, according to Elliot, I want to see what you think about this. It creates a permanent connection with that person, and so because of that, they can retain their memories. And it seems like that part is temporary. But the permanent connection is interesting. So I wonder if you have fixers like Mama Collar who are doing this over and over again, like, are there lasting side effects to the fixer if they're performing all these permanent connections amongst a bunch of people? Like, does that take some kind of toll on that fixer over time?
What I would say is that it might even split their consciousness to a degree.
Yeah, no, totally.
So their minds would be a little, I don't know, like, I don't want to compare it to a mental illness, but it would be like taking slices of other people and sticking them into your brain. And then how that would break up the neuron, how your brain functions, basically.
Yeah, I that's what I mean. Like, I wonder, not only just mentally, because like, yeah, they're trying to compartmentalize all these other memories and emotions
Mm-hmm.
that's permanent. That the word permanent is really like
Interesting.
weird. Yeah. And I also have to wonder, in this, because of the linking, that's why Rael's feeling Porter's feelings. Like she mentions, like she's feeling his like unbearable sadness right now. And that's part of what's taking a toll on her. She's getting his memories. And Mama Cassie's like, they're going to fade. Don't worry. Why is this the first time Rael's experiencing this if she used to fix people in the session, is my question. Is this linking only with witches?
Is the linking, like you said, only with witches, or was she not using linking before?
Yeah, does the Willet Collar brand fixing not involve a link connection?
Or there was such minor injuries that the link wasn't strong enough for her?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like
Yeah,
that.
so she wasn't healing anybody with, like, it didn't seem like she was going around healing people who were dying or who were so ill that they were critical. So maybe she's just been healing little ailments here and there, and it hasn't been enough to give her that connection.
We'll go with that theory. I was just curious because you don't see her having like casserole ladies memories after
Oh
the
my
boil
gosh!
exchange. Could you imagine?
What an interesting.
You know what I mean? She's like, oh shit, I left the stove on. You
Yeah.
know, like Rael
Damn
having
it, Earl!
random.
Earl's at the bar again.
Yeah, like she's having those memories, and it's weird, but I like that idea. It has to do with the depth of the linking based on how the severity of the illness, basically. So with Porter, it was death, which is the most severe you can get. So the link must have had to have been really, really strong for her to like exert her magic.
And
I like that.
I also think that you were onto something with it being witches too. I imagine that the link with witches is stronger.
Yeah, I would think so too. Because, like, when Porter was grabbing her, because Porter's been in the army at least a year, I would
Mm-hmm.
imagine, so he knows what linking is, which Scylla does too, which is why she was panicking at the end of the episode. So he understands linking. So I think he was trying to link with her when he grabbed her hand. So maybe that also, like, forged a link that Rael didn't experience before.
So, like, he was putting it forward for her to get. And
Right,
so it really
exactly.
got it. And so it really sunk in because intention matters, obviously.
Yeah. So I think that's partially why also this effect with Rael from Porter's memories and stuff kind of lasts almost like 24 hours. I think
Mm-hmm.
they formed a very strong unencumbered link with each other, and so Rael was able to take on a lot more than she normally would
And
have.
gave her a
So
migraine.
and it gave her the world's worst, an unbearable migraine.
No, no.
Yeah, and so just to kind of wrap up that scene, so Rael and Mamakase talk about the linking, and Rael says, it's not just the visions I'm having his emotions. And she's feeling his fear, and she doesn't think he wanted to die based on what she's feeling. So this starts this whole like question of, well, did Porter really kill himself, or did something else happen to Porter?
Yep. Which takes us to the next scene with, which I like to call Petra the party pooper. Because
Yeah.
because
I mean, yeah.
good old Alder's just like having a chill time in her war room, if you will. All the biddies are checking out these maps. What are they planning?
I don't know. They're always at tables with maps.
What are they?
Like always.
Are they like expanding the biddy quarters? I don't know.
Oh, I wish. They're like, I want my own fucking room.
Right? Can we please have our own rooms? But
no, it's really the biddies who are in charge of like world domination, because they're always planning with maps, right?
The biddies are playing Risk, but with real lives.
Risk the Biddy edition. Someone should make that a game.
They should. Biddy Risk.
Biddy Risk.
That sounds like a dance too. I love it. So Petra's here to talk about Porter's death and how she thinks it was the spree. She is, spoiler alert, she's right and we hate it.
Yeah.
But Alder's not buying it. Petra says something very striking in that if the spree is infiltrating, they need to get a handle on it. Girl, it's already been done. So multiple time, like
my question after this episode is like, how many fucking spree agents are here?
That's my question.
And why do they need so many spree agents?
Thank you. Well,
in the army,
who wouldn't want to spy on their enemy though?
I mean, that's true, but like,
so
what are they doing? I don't know. Sorry.
Then she says that she wants to, like, she thinks they should cancel Beltane.
Dun dun dun.
The biddies start clicking and clacking like a pair of those fake teeth.
And they drop their Risk pieces,
yeah,
and they're like, what?
They drop all their game pieces. I'm surprised no one like flipped the table.
Oh, flip the table? Like the Risk pieces go everywhere. That would have been amazing.
The biddies are like, bitch please, because Alder is like, bitch please.
Alder's not having any of this.
And in my brain, I'm like, wow, Petra's being the adult here. So she says that witches respect a ceasefire on the holiday, and they will be having it. And Anacostia backs that shit up. So Petra's just like cowed a little bit as she's letting that sink in. But she also mentions that they found residue on mirrors at the attack site, which was... Was that the one in Ukraine?
It was Kiev.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Kiev. It was the one in Kiev. So
Clary's daughter.
Where Clary's daughter died. So they're going to check them during Beltane to see if there's anything, checking for infiltrators. Then Alder mentions that she wants to wake Porter and see if it was a suicide. So they're going to fetch Isadora. And
yay!
And Theora is gonna be so joyously out of her mind.
Listen, finally, someone else other than us mentions Isadora.
I know.
She is real.
She is real.
She's very real.
But it's pointed out that Beltane is the only time they can do this kind of work. So really interesting. Alder orders Porter to be woken and to see what the heck has been going on. So we do get to see Necros doing their necro magic in this episode.
We do.
For a hot second.
Yes.
And it is as creepy as you want it to be.
It's amazing.
Yes.
I just have one more thing on this scene. So the other thing I take away from this scene, other than the Biddy Risky game, is it's the first hint of the subtle power struggle happening between Mama Bellwether and General Alder. And I think they kind of highlighted this a little bit at The Hague last time, where you remember that Sarah Alder's been in power for 300 years. And so when it comes to the United States Army, she's been at the top of the food chain for 300 years. And there is no outing her. Like, she is the top of the food chain. And so if you have somebody like Mama Bellwether, who's very ambitious, it must be really frustrating to know that you could never fully climb to the top. Like, she will always be an underling to Sarah. And so you kind of see her trying to like assert the fact that she's a good leader. She could be like the leader of the army here. And Sarah's like, no, thanks for your input, but we're going to do this my way. Like, I'm the one with the big witch energy here. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm the OG. Like, sit down, go do your intelligence stuff somewhere else. We're doing what I want because I'm in charge. And so I think that it kind of highlights this little sore spot with Mama Bellwether that kind of gets like hinted at as the story progresses.
I think it just kind of gets picked at as the episodes go by, and it gets worse. And
Yeah, and I can totally see that from Petra's point of view because, like, again, it must be super frustrating to be like, I want to be in charge, but I can't because you're always going to be in charge. And my opinion only matters so much, even though she's right in this situation, which must be very frustrating to her. So I like that dynamic.
They shouldn't have named her Petra. They should have just named her Ambition. Ambition Bellwether.
I mean, is Ambition and Bellwether not synonymous?
They are. I mean, they should just probably be hyphenated into their name, to be honest.
AB. And then her and Abigail would both have A names. So
there you go.
So after we get our first Isadora mentioned by a canon character, we shoot on over to the field, I guess, where Witchfather is giving a speech about, I don't know where they are.
They're like, why are they in the middle of like somewhere on campus?
Yeah, they're in the lacrosse field. Like, I don't know where they are. It's just some field. And because the director's like, this is pretty. But it doesn't matter. So Witchfather's addressing all the cadets, basically giving like a little memorial / pep talk speech about Porter. And while this is happening, you hear a couple of the cadets kind of murmuring like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I saw him yesterday. And someone in this crowd is Bree, who says, see, he was a creepy loner. I knew it.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
That was Bree. Bree broke the fourth wall and went and gave that line. And so Witchfather's up there with Alder and the biddies, and of the unit, Abigail and Tally are in the crowd, and he's basically saying like Porter was a really good cadet, like he was committed to the army. We're gonna fly the flags at half mast on base today. And at the end, the cadets all stomp, but when they stomp, it's really sad sounding.
It's really subdued.
It's so sad. It's the saddest stomping I've ever heard.
Sad stomp.
It's so sad. But then to boost the morale after the sad speech about somebody dying, Alder's like, it's fine though. We're still going to do Beltane. Like, we're still doing this because you guys have to be ready to fight the spree. And your attendance is mandatory at this thing, but choose to participate however you want. I just need you all at Beltane because we need to be in top shape to fight kind of like the spree or whatever.
You got to charge up, so you got to be there.
Right. But I like that she adds participate however you want, because that will come into play when we get to Raylla, who's not in the headspace for this right now, but is going to participate for her unit's sake. And also, even if she was in a better headspace, Raylla hates the army and would never participate anyway. So I love that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so Alder, like, witch mic drops and gets out of there. And then Abigail and Tally start talking to each other, and they pass a group of cadets who are talking shit about Raylla. And someone says, I heard she tried to save him. She ran outside of cannon like a reckless maniac. And Abigail is not having any of this.
Oh.
Amazingly, I know. So she goes back, turns on her big witch energy, and scolds the shit out of these cadets. And she's like, listen, she's gifted. I don't want to hear you talking shit about her ever again, or you're going to deal with me, basically. And what a hard pivot, because they were talking about Raylla's magic, and Abigail defends her fixer magic specifically. So what a shift from calling Raylla's magic that country shit. Mm-hmm. And what's happening here is, I talked about it in the last episode, the way when they were talking about Gem Bellwether and how the thing they revere the most about her is that she sacrificed herself for the greater good. And that's kind of what Raylla did here. And because Abigail witnessed that, Ashley even said that, like, this is what shifts Abigail and Raylla's dynamic permanently, because she saw that, like, that bellwether greatness kind of move in Raylla when she went to save Porter without a second thought for her own life. And so this is the first hint that, like, Abigail's viewing Raylla a lot differently, and she has new respect for her. So I really love that. And also she just, like, yelled at a bunch of people, which is great.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I love that part of the scene. But I also love Tally's face afterward.
Oh yeah. After they scurry away, all scared of Abigail, Tally is, like, beaming like it's her birthday. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh my God, Abigail defended Raylla. It's so cute.
Like, oh, see, you do like her.
Exactly. And so this is the action that really changes how Abigail views Raelle and her like gaining respect for Raelle. And it also really harkens back to the pilot when Abigail was complaining about Raelle and Alder tells her the story of that fixer that jumped into an eye of a hurricane to save kids because that's who Raelle is. Raelle's first instinct is to help other people and put them before herself. So parallels.
It just echoes right on back.
So many parallels.
So many parallels. Okay, but listen. The next scene. The reunion. So Raelle's leaving the infirmary looking like she's A, having an existential crisis, and B, is the most hungover of any hungover person that's ever been hungover.
It's worse than when she had to do guard duty.
It's worse than when she had to do guard duty. But I would like to note that we're in Raelle's light. So
We sure are.
we're very yellow right now. And once again, Scylla's hanging out under a tree.
Okay, listen. They love having moments under live oaks.
They do.
They do. Like, it's like they go find them and they're like, let's talk here.
Yeah, it is. It is.
For the aesthetics is their thing.
Well, I mean, okay, we have to have good aesthetics.
We do. The more majestic the tree, the better.
Exactly. So Scylla's hanging out under a tree waiting, and Raelle walks by and sees her through the branches because, I mean, these branches are significantly in the way. And I'm like,
it's a live oak.
It's her base camp for finding Raelle. Like,
lurk under a tree. No, I find the most majestic live oak, lurk there. Because Raelle's going to look for it. She's like, Scylla, live oak. Got it. Yeah, there she is.
Exactly. It's like their little meet cute thing. But
they do it multiple times in this episode with the live oaks. I just love it.
So Raelle notices her and she walks over. Scylla is beside herself, checking Raelle over like with her hand. She's like, Are you tell me you're okay? And Raelle is like, you could tell she's smiles for the first time since like last episode because Scylla's so concerned about her. So that's nice. But she's confused. She has a lot of questions, is what she's trying to get across. And she asked Scylla if she knew that Porter was depressed. So she's assuming that he was depressed, I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, I think she felt the depression, but she felt the fear. So I think she's trying to figure out what was real and
what wasn't. And Scylla's like, no, I didn't know him anymore. So like, I haven't seen him in years. And I think Scylla in this moment is just glad she didn't kill Raelle because that's what it would have been if Raelle had died, trying to save Porter.
Yeah. I also love the way when Raelle asks her, did you know he was depressed? The way she looks at Scylla, it's like she's watching her really carefully to gauge how she's going to talk about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is different from like the other times Raelle has asked her these questions kind of thing.
She has an actual suspicion now.
Yeah.
Because of what she's getting from Porter, she's feeling it. So that little thing is turned on in her brain and she's in sort of like in detective mode.
Yes. Ooh, well said.
Yeah.
I agree.
So Raelle thinks it could have been because they're together and that's what depressed Porter, but Scylla shuts that down really quick and says there was always something off about him. So she's kind of like turning around on that, being like, I didn't know him, but there was always something off about him. He was angry. That's why I left him.
And I wonder when she says that there's like, he was angry. Like, is that her projecting that she was the angry one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's how I read it. And also...
Me too. She's projecting in this scene a lot.
This scene is all Scylla projecting her own shit onto Porter and also skirting around everything by... It's not even lies at this point. It's just obfuscation. She's just...
Yeah.
Finding some way to get Raelle off of this case.
And I wonder if this is her processing her feelings as well. Because again, like you said before, Scylla doesn't regret the action, but she feels bad about the way she feels.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is her processing
Oh,
too.
absolutely. I don't think that she hasn't had time to process what she did
Right,
either.
exactly. It's been like 2 hours or whatever. She hasn't processed either.
No.
Yeah,
And so all she knew is that she was very worried about Raelle, and I think what she did to Porter got pushed to the back of her mind
totally.
because of that, and because she didn't want to think about it, because who would?
Totally. Just one last thing on the when Raelle says, "I can't stop thinking about that it was
Uh-huh.
us." Like it's Raelle taking on all this guilt again
Again,
too. She's like,
yeah.
"Did I kill him? Like
Right.
us dating killed him?" Like poor Raelle.
Yeah. She's like,
Oh, that's so sad.
it
She has like a lot of PTSD from this.
she
Is what this
does. She has a
is.
lot
Ugh.
of I'm not surprised Raelle is just not a bundle of PTSD in a blonde package at this point.
Yeah, right. It's like it echoes back to like her mom dying
Mhm.
and like her taking on all this guilt from. Ugh, I just feel so bad for Raelle this whole episode.
So, yeah, it kind of gets me, but I will say this, Amalia, when she's lying as Scylla, it's so obvious. Like, you can tell that
Oh
Scylla's
yes,
just a bad liar, but
that's why she's in the spree.
yeah, and that's why she's in the street, but I just
She passed. It's past the interview. You can't lie. Perfect.
so Amalia's a great actress, and we know that she can play it's just like really good. It's just layers. I love the layers. So, because Scylla says that Porter was disturbed, I mean, he killed himself. Like, Scylla, don't say that. Like, stop. But she comforts Raelle by she's using all of this to comfort Raelle by telling her that it was her first instinct to save Porter. She has nothing to be ashamed of. So this is like the theme of what everyone's telling Raelle. We just need to put him behind us. And then they hug, and Raelle still looks haunted as AF.
Well, one last thing during this conversation before they hug, Raelle asks, "Did you see him last night?"
Oh, right. She did.
Because this is really what she wants to confront Scylla about. And the way Taylor delivers that, I think that Raelle's afraid of the answer here. But Scylla, instead of like trying to placate Raelle here, she starts gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what? Did he say something to you? Like, instead of she goes back into questioning, it's like the Spree playbook for how to handle really bad conversations. She just starts putting it on Raelle.
Yeah. And this is the problem that some people had with this relationship, was this
I mean,
section of the story for, I think, and obviously since the beginning, Scylla's been lying and gaslighting Raelle to a large extent. And
I think this is yeah, I guess a little bit in the last episode.
yeah.
This is the gaslighting episode. Before this, it's more just like half truths and like nothing answers. But this is the gaslighting episode because Scylla really has something to lose if Raelle
Finds out
gets to the truth. Yeah,
on several levels, three levels that I can think of: the army, the Spree finding out that she's found out, and losing Raelle.
yeah. Because at this point, Scylla has feelings for Raelle that she's acknowledging, so it's more than it's turning into more than a mission. But I understand people having issues with it up till this point because it's a relationship that began in deception. Like, obviously, that's going to have issues.
You have to take it in the context of the story and the reasoning for it. I get that people
Well,
don't
yeah.
want to see that on. Well, I guess it's, to me, if you take out everything that's real in these shows, you're giving such a generic standard vision of relationships, and that just doesn't work for me there. Like, don't sanitize it, is what I'm saying. And I felt like that's what people were saying to an extent about how it's a toxic relationship and this is not the kind of representation we want.
Okay, first of all, queers can be represented toxically, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
Because that's real life. That's fine. And not everything has to be Disney, and it drives me crazy that people are like, well, this isn't a Disney movie, so I'm mad. It's like, okay, just calm down. But I understand viewing it as toxic because, again, it started out like Scylla was like, let's get together so I can give you to this quote unquote evil organization. So yeah, it does look toxic from like the 3,000 foot view if you simplify it. But as it evolves, you see that it gets more complex and it becomes less about the spree and the mission and more about the two of them. So in the evolution, it's not really toxic, but the premise is fucked up. There's no getting around that.
And that's Motherland, period.
Yeah, like that. This is espionage. It's done poorly, but this is espionage. So I don't mind it. But I understand that to an extent.
We're on the exact same page with that.
Shocking.
Shocking.
Cheers to us.
Cheers. Yes. But it's, I just kind of wanted to address it because you hear Malia address it several times. And I think that that's something she got early on, was a lot of comments regarding the toxicity of the relationship. Not so much anymore because we've seen it evolve, but we're redoing season 1 right now, so we have to revisit that.
Yes. And just before we exit the scene, I just kind of wanted to talk about their hug. So when they hug at the end, all we get is Raelle's face.
Mm-hmm.
And Raelle looks like she's about to have a breakdown because like the weight of the world is on her shoulders right now. And
yeah, haunted AF. She is just
right. And Scylla again doesn't really answer her question, obviously, but we don't see Scylla's face, and I would love to see what Scylla's face looked like in this moment because I can only imagine what she's feeling.
I think it's the same face that she had when she was watching Raelle on the ground.
I don't know. I also feel like she has to be conflicted because at this point, she knows what linking is. So, as they said in the After the Storm, like Scylla's afraid that Raelle's going to get Porter's memories, and Raelle confirms that in the scene. So I also think she has to be in like survival mode, going like, shit, like what did she see? I think she's concerned about Raelle, but she's like, okay, you're alive. Now I have to do damage control. So that's why I think her face would have been interesting to see the wheels turning.
I really think it's this episode is a consistent panic attack for Scylla.
It is. I mean, this is, again, Scylla does things without thinking through the consequences and then has to deal with the consequences later. And it's
guys, she's 19. Okay.
I know. Yeah. Also, like, guys, they're like baby adults. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind when you're viewing this relationship. This is like, yeah, they're 19. Like, come on. Last thing about the scene. So the very last frame we see is this very wide shot of them under the live oak. And I want to note what the frame looks like. So if you pause it, you get the Lesbian Jesus light that is coming through the live oak and only illuminating the two of them, whereas the rest of the frame is just the leaves from the live oak. So I love that because it's Raelle's light just engulfing the two of them, and that's beautiful.
Well, it's also like carried throughout the rest of the episode because you see all of these scenes, especially with them later on, where they have all of these trees around that are casting shade. And so you have Raelle's light coming through as sunlight does through, the trees. But I'm like, are we doing a mixture of shadow and Raelle's light? Is it like
I think so. It's just the light is only around them, and it's a wide shot, and they're just a very small piece of the frame. I had to note that because
that was a really beautiful shot.
They color and light these things on purpose, is what I'm saying. So
we love color theory.
We do, and we'll have more color theory this episode. So from that clusterfuck / cute scene,
painful scene.
Painful scene. We move over to Cersei barracks where Tally is flitting around the barracks trying to get ready for Beltane because she can't control her emotions here. She's just like trying to find clothes to wear, and just she's begging Abigail to help her because poor baby Tally has no dating skills. And so Abigail's like, girl, chill, like just calm down. It's going to be fine. And then Tally gets a little tiny blue messenger outside her window where this little parrot stops by and delivers a message from Garrett because it has a little like knotted wreath thing on it on the scroll. So it's Garrett's calling card, I suppose. And I love everything about this because the scroll, which Tally opens with Abigail hovering over her shoulder, is basically the witch version of a dick pic. And Tally's like, this is private. And like, girl, don't open it with your roommate hovering over your shoulder, first of all. Second of all, I love the realism here because male witches invented the witch version of a dick pic before witch texting exists because, spoiler, in the next episode, Scylla invents witch texting. So the dick pic came before the texting, so that's just the way men work. So
this is the way it works.
Love the realism. Also, I have to note, the Lesbian Jesus light is in this scene, so I have to wonder, was Garrett harnessing our Holy Lady of Games powers when he sent the bird? Yes? No? Maybe? I think so.
That's just okay, hold on, because that's like an like don't use lesbian Jesus's powers to send dick pics, please.
Right. That's the opposite of what she's about. But it's Garrett, so I wouldn't put it past him. He needs all the help he can get. And so Abigail makes a comment that she's like, there's no way that's what he looks like. And Tally's like, oh my God, this is mine. Stop looking at it. And then poor Raylla walks in at this moment to stop this scene for all of us. Thank you, Lesbian Jesus. And basically, Tally hugs her, and Abigail and her have this conversation where Tally tries to praise Raylla for what she did. And Raylla's like, I can't enough of this. Like, I can't hear this. And they start talking about Beltane. And Raylla is like, God, I just hope you don't have to dance around a pole with ribbons and sing, we all come from the goddess. And so I just wanted to comment on this line because what she's talking about are real things.
Maypole.
Yeah, so the maypole dancing, that's the dance around the pole with ribbons. And so historically, they believe maypole dancing originated as like a Germanic pagan fertility ritual. And it was performed in May, so like around the time of Beltane. So that's why she's talking about this. And then the song, We All Come from the Goddess, is a real song. So I will link it if you want to listen to it. But it's basically this chant. The lyrics are talking about like the goddess and the god. And the god they're referring to is like this horned god, which is like the male fertility god. So it's kind of like this like circle of life, celebration of like fertility, rebirth kind of chant. So that's what she's referring to. So the real things that they put in there. So Raylla and Abigail like banter for a bit, and Tally is literally jumping around the apartment and dancing like with these dresses. And Abigail's going on. She's like, listen, we have to participate in Beltane. This is how we're going to like beat the enemies. And Raylla's like, oh God, I can't. This is a het party. This is not for me. But Tally's like, please, you have to be there because it's mandatory. And I guess if she's not there, they can't participate. And Raylla's kind of like mulling this over, and Abigail steps in and says, look, we're proud of you, which is a big thing. So Raylla is now hearing from Abigail, of all people, that she's proud of her, which is huge. So Raylla looks really surprised to hear this, but of course is Raylla. And so she turns on her signature sass and she's like, okay, but if my survival depends on Tally getting laid, she needs a different dress. And Tally looks mildly offended. Abigail agrees with her. And it's like this very cute, sweet, genuine bonding moment for the three of them. And it's beautiful.
It is. That line is awesome, but I think my favorite line is when Rail says, oh, Abigail, you know I love the military. Just the way that Taylor says it is so good.
The sass.
Like, I want that as my notification tone for some reason.
Raylla, even when sad, is still sassy as fuck.
And hilarious.
You gotta love it.
Yeah, the scene is cute. I love that Abigail finally, now that she's turning a new leaf about Raylla, she actually says it to her face. So that's nice.
Yeah, she sees Raylla in a new light now, and so it's changing the unit dynamic, which is a good thing.
So unfortunately for Theora, I get to introduce her fave.
We're finally here, guys. Isadora in the crypt.
So we're in Necroland with Isadora. And I'm like, hey, girl, how you doing? But she's wheeling in a body into the lab, and all the Necros are standing around in their little white lab uniforms. Scylla looks happy, and she's ready to work. And Isadora saying, we have a rare opportunity because of the holiday. And then she pulls back the sheet, and Scylla's heart drops out of her body. Because it's Porter's body, and she's very obviously freaking out, and no one notices.
No one.
But here's something that was very interesting. She's mouthing words to herself.
Yes, I noticed that, and I don't know what it is.
I can't tell what she's doing. I noticed that Scylla does mouth things a lot, especially in this episode, though. And I'm not talking about the obvious when she's using work. I'm talking about when there's no work to be used. Like, what is she doing? What is she mouthing to herself is what I want to know. Hey, Amalia, what is she saying? But the other Necros are all excited and whispering, and Scylla looks like she's about to pass out. But Isadora starts anointing Porter's body with oil on the lips and the eyelids, and then she sprays the body with something from It looks like an old ass perfume bottle.
She's spritzing.
She's spritzing her corpse. And I have to think that it's the same bottle she uses to spritz her fungus.
You took it from Older. Like, I need the spritzer. Can I have
Did you just spray him with fungus fertilizers?
Right, there's one on base and they have to share it.
Yeah. So I just really I get the ceremonial or the ritualistic meaning behind what she's doing, but it just tickled me that she's using that bottle. And she talks about how they're going to open a death current to experience the last things that Porter saw and heard, which is really bad news for Scylla.
Yeah.
And at the end, she asks if anyone's good with wind chill because they have to keep the body cold or it won't work, which is a key thing to remember. Do you have anything else you want?
Yes.
Okay.
I have so much.
I knew you would, so I wanted to get through it and then just let you go. It's like, release the Theora.
Okay, so I have two things about this scene. First of all, when Isadora comes into the room, she looks so giddy.
She does. It's Christmas.
Like Christmas, her birthday, it's all happening at once. She has this giant smile on her face as she's wheeling at a dead body, which it tells you everything you need to know about Isadora.
In her head, she would be singing and dancing if she...
It's amazing. But, last thing. So, I know people out there are probably like, well, Isadora's here. You couldn't possibly have a what was Isadora doing off screen. But I do.
Oh.
2 seconds before she comes in, happily wheeling in the corpse, Isadora rounds the necros in the lab. Notice they're all wearing white coats. This is why I think they're scientists. So she gathers the necros and she's like, listen, gang, I know tonight is Beltane and you were all excited about the super cool sex party you were going to participate in. But we have something so much better than that to do. And then she literally skips off to go get the gurney and brings in this corpse and all smiling. And that's where the scene picks up. So all the necros in the background are all murmuring because they're like, God damn it, Beltane just got ruined for us. So Scylla ruined Beltane for the necros because now they can't participate in the super cool sex party because they have to make a corpse talk. So good job, Scylla.
I totally buy it. Oh my God, you're right. That was what Isadora was doing.
Yeah, so I think Scylla's hearing the murmuring. She's like, oh, fuck, I ruined Beltane. And also I'm about to get outed. So that was the murmuring.
Oh, God. Yeah, good point.
But to Isadora, she's like, sex party? I don't need a sex party. We're going to make a body talk. So she's more excited about this. But the necros are like, damn it.
Well, isn't sex just another way of making a body talk? So
I guess.
It's like for like, I guess.
But they don't get to participate. They're doing the talking.
Well, I'm saying
Isadora's
at least
I don't
they
care.
Get to participate in some kind of body talking.
Right. A dead body talking. Which is all Isadora cares about. And the poor necros, really the necros all just got twat blocked by Scylla. So good job, Scylla. You ruined Beltane.
Good job, Scylla. Jeez.
So that's what Isadora was doing 2 seconds before she was on screen.
You just need a whole segment for what Isadora was doing.
My goal is to have one every episode.
Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm here for it.
Feel free to chime in with what tertiary characters are doing off screen.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I'm going to come up with this one.
Yes. Listeners, if there's a tertiary character you would like to hear what they're doing off screen from us, let us know.
Yeah, hit us up.
We will oblige.
We can come up with something. I'm a writer. We got this.
We totally can. Exactly. So we can do it. Just, let us know. If it's Porter, we're not doing it. So
yeah, no.
He's off screen forever, as far as I'm concerned.
We're not doing Porter, and neither is Scylla.
Yeah, exactly. We stand Scylla Ramsword in this podcast, and we are not doing that in her honor.
No. So you want to go to the next one?
Yeah.
I like to call it No Whiskey for Petra.
We will get to that. So we're back in the war room with Alder and Mama Bellwether, round 2 of their Big Witch Energy measuring contest. And Petra doesn't even get to say anything. Alder's just like, give me the updates for the thing I asked you to look into. And Petra's like, yeah, no, I ain't got none. I'm here to talk to you about something else. And Alder's like, God, all right, well, let's have whiskey before we get into this because I need whiskey. And I love that she says it's the one thing civilians got right. So I love that about Alder. And the biddies are still gathered around the war table in this scene because their risk game is still happening.
This game has been going on for months, let's be honest.
Long as this game, they're still playing. And so Alder pours whiskey for the two of them. They cheers. And Petra's just like cuts the crap. And she's like, tell me about the Tarim. And the biddies look up from their wrist game and they're like, what the fuck? And they start clicking. And Alder's like, how did you know about that? That's classified. And Petra, with her big witch energy, is like, I'm your head of intelligence. So it's my job to know. Plus, I have friends at The Hague too. So this is her pulling her like political power. Because again, I think all of this is just power struggling between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Alder's like, well, I appreciate your input, but I need you to focus on the spree. Which is interesting because the first conversation was like, don't worry about the spree. They're not here. We're focused on Beltane. And now she's like, no, go look at the spree. Don't look at the Tarim. And Alder, again, reasserts her big witch energy. And she's like, the whiskey? Yeah, I will take that back now. Get the hell out of my office now.
Mm-hmm.
And as Petra's leaving, Alder downs Petra's glass of whiskey. And I love
look
it.
on her face.
I know, I love it. It's
oh my god,
good.
It's so good, but it's also hot. Like I don't know.
Listen,
like this is the one. This is the one time where I'm like, oh damn, girl, for Alder, because I mean,
I've said this before. They both can get it. I love that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Yes,
it was lovely.
So good.
I love seeing women in these positions.
Same. That's why it's the perfect show.
It is. God,
it's so good.
It can never end. Stop trying to end it.
No.
From there, we skip right on into Petra helicoptering Abigail.
Yeah.
Petra's walking down the Cersei Barracks hallway and on her way to see Abigail, but she meets Tally and Raylla in the hall. Tally starts gushing like she's just met a celebrity.
Yeah.
And is like, oh, it's such an honor to meet you. And she immediately straightens up and is at ease because that's what you're supposed to do in the presence of an officer. But also it's Abigail's mom. So Raelle's just sitting there fuming because it's Abigail's mom. And this is who she blames for her own mother's death. Just glaring at Petra.
Yeah.
And then Abigail comes out and she basically just asks her mom, well, what are you doing here? What business are you on? Which, of course, is classified. So she's just passing that one down.
They say it at the same time, too.
Yep.
Abigail's like, I've heard this before. Classified.
Yeah, exactly. So Tally and Rael move on, but not before Rael gets a crack in about Petra knowing her mom. I think you knew my mom, Willa Collar. And then she just kind of walks on. Wait,
before she walks on, I love the way she just walks up to Petra without introducing herself and is like, you know my mother. Like, does not introduce herself to this officer. Like, that's the disrespect in the army for Rael. I love it.
Because Rael totally loves the army, guys.
Yep. Big wish energy from Rael.
Mm-hmm. So Petra's left to talk to Abigail. And she asks what that girl's attitude was about. To which Abigail says it's because Rael thinks you're responsible for her mom's death. And Petra's like, well, that's not the first time I've heard that. So, I mean, in her position, she's going to be hearing these kinds of things and being put in that position. That's what being a general is, you know?
Yeah.
That's what being a leader is.
And I think it's also like, again, like reflective of the Bellwether upbringing where like realities of war are just like bred into them and it doesn't phase them. They're like, well, this is what happens in war.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you want from me?
Yeah, exactly. And you see where Abigail gets that.
Totally.
In this scene. But she points out to try to kind of save Rael's reputation in her mother's eyes that Rael almost saved someone's life last night. Which Petra's not really impressed by at all. So it didn't have the desired effect because all she says is, I hope that improved your rankings because they're nowhere near where they should be. I just really like, get off her.
Oh, it gets worse though. And then she's like,
does.
I guess you're not completely to blame.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God.
What the hell, Petra?
Ouch.
And then she's like, people are dying, Abigail.
And like you just see it on Abigail's face that like this hurts her to hear all this stuff.
It
like,
does. It's just
painful.
It's even worse than normal when you see Abigail and her mom interact.
No, totally.
You can see how much it hurts Abigail, and apparently Petra doesn't see it or doesn't care.
Yeah.
But as she goes from people are dying, Abigail, to invite your unit to the wedding because
I know, what a pivot.
what a pivot. Because the dean of war college is going to be there and you need to impress her and show her the kind of leader you can be.
Yeah.
So Abigail says the appropriate things to her mother to kind of get her to move along. And then Petra gives Abigail this pat on the arm.
I know. Not a hug.
Not a hug. That's the
pats.
affection you get, is the pat on the arm. It's like, buck up, private, and leaves. Like, she's delivered her message and she's going to happily go off and pry into Sarah Alder's affairs some more.
I know. This scene paints a very vivid picture of their relationship and how achievement is tied to affection in the Bellwether household. And the status in the armed forces is everything. And Ashley mentions in one of the After the Storms that, like, I think part of why Abigail looks so sad taking in this information in this scene is because failure is like her biggest fear. And she said something about, like, you know, Abigail doesn't want to be the first Bellwether to fail and like to not get into war college. And like, that's all she's like cracking under the pressure of all of this family stuff is what's happening in the scene. And like, Petra doesn't notice and like doesn't care. She's just like, your job is to be a leader. And like, so go get on that.
Yeah. Abigail looks sick when Petra walks away.
Yeah. And it carries out throughout this episode too. Like, you could tell this pressure is really weighing on her psychologically.
And the next episode, it really comes to a head, but God, I just felt so much for Abigail in that scene, because not only is like everything's going on around her and she really can't control what other people do.
Yes.
But everyone expects her to.
Right. And I think the whole you rise and fall as units is really thrown a wrench in all of her plans for what the reasons you just said. Good point.
But at the same time, I think that the unit thing was the best thing for Abigail as a person.
Totally.
To grow and progress, because otherwise she would have totally isolated herself in her quest to become what she was supposed to become, which is the ultimate leader, but would have alienated everyone around her, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So the unit thing is a good thing for all three of them.
It really is. Without it, I think they all would have been lost.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of the unit is about to get their scourges from all the dudes. So we go back to the basic training room.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And the lesbian Jesus light is back, so Raylla is going to be in the scene. And lo and behold, Witchfather is addressing all the cadets, and he's explaining basically the men made scourges for the women. So we talked about this before. This is part of what the male witches do. And that's like their physical weapon. And he's like, once you have this thing, it is yours. It is your responsibility to keep it in tip-top shape and carry it with you at all times. And the dudes break out after this, and they go to their respective witches that they made these things for. And so Abigail gets 2 from her dudes because misandry, and I love it. And all the girls get one, including our lesbian Jesus, who gets it from this guy. And then very rudely and un-Southern gentlewomanly of her, she just like takes it and walks away without even...
Yeah, she's just like... and then walks away. And
it's like, Raylla, we don't know this dude. Like, say something.
Yeah, don't be. I know you're going through a lot right now.
No, thank you. She just walks away. It's super rude, but you know, she has PTSD, so we'll excuse it. But Raylla. And lastly, Tally gets one from Garrett, and there's a hand brush that happens, and Garrett says, "Think of me when you use it," which is supposed to be like romantic, but like, wait, he's saying is like, "Hey, think of me when you murder with this."
Yeah,
which I guess is romantic to some people, like no king shaming, but I love that he's trying to be all sweet, and it's like, "Think of me when you murder."
He totally didn't mean it that way. Think of me when you murder. No, as soon as Tally was like, "You guys made these?" I was like, "I'm out. I can't."
Aw, let Tally be happy.
No, I want her to be happy, but I'll be over there with Raylla.
Oh, Raylla's being rude right now, but anyway.
Oh no, I'm telling her off.
So after they get their weapons, Mama Costia's like, all right, cool. Ladies break out and start using them. The guys march off, and they start like slaying a bunch of dummies. And Abigail says to Tally, wait until after Beltane. That's when they get their power. So I guess like the sex party activates these things. I don't know. But
your weapons are activated by the orgy.
Yeah, I guess that's what she's saying. And Raylla, instead of like participating in this conversation, is having PTSD, and so she's getting transported against her will into a Porter memory. And what's happening in the scene is she's having visions interlaced with conversations. So what she's seeing is Porter walking up the stairs out onto a roof, and he's in this lesbian Jesus light. And over top of that, she hears Scylla's voice saying, "Porter, what the hell?" and Porter saying, "I need to talk to you." So again, sowing more doubt into Raylla and kind of confirming her worst fear that like Scylla knew about this somehow and she was potentially involved. And so Raylla just can't handle this, and so she just leaves the training area. She's like,
I need some air.
I need air. She gets out. And then Libba and Abigail start flirting.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
And Libba's like, yeah, your scourge work looks like shit. And while Abigail is super distracted by Libba flirting with her, she gets hit with a dummy and gets knocked on her ass, which is really funny.
Such a wonderful scene. I bet Ashley had so much fun with that.
It's so funny. And then Libba, of course, has to get one final dig, and she's like, you're not even trying to get into war college anymore, are you? And it's like vocalizing Abigail's big fear, again, of like failing as a bellwether and kind of thing.
I love that part.
Yeah,
so
hilarious.
Good. When anytime those two are around each other, I am just ready.
Yes.
I'm like, hold on, I need to make popcorn.
That's so good.
So good. So Raylla, while she's getting her air, which she's not really doing, she's just going to find Scylla, goes straight up to Scylla's barracks, but Scylla's not there. Being in the environment, though, where Porter was last alive, triggers all the visions and the feelings again. You can tell that she's having the giant pounding headache. She's seeing all of the flashes of Porter walking down the hall and hearing Porter's conversation with Scylla. And she turns and walks up the stairs, getting flashes of Porter walking up the stairs. And as she, like, everything is drenched in Rael's color, but to the point where you can't see. And Rael can't see because the sun's shining in her eyes. It's overwhelming, and that's the sense that you get is what this is what's happening to Rael. She's being completely overwhelmed by Porter's memories and feelings and hearing Scylla in them. And Porter saying, I want the truth. Because the things you used to say and the things you used to do, that person doesn't end up in the army. That person ends up filling a balloon with hate. So that's like the words that go through Rael's head. And she hears Scylla say, that's not who I am. Right as Porter jumps off the roof and into like the sunlight. And you can see Rael shading her eyes as he goes over the edge. It's just like such a freaking tragic scene. It's so sad. And at the same time, they've captured the confusion of it. And I almost felt nauseous watching that scene.
So. Yeah, the camera work and the sound team well played with this, because the way they do it is when Rael, like you said, except for one instance, Porter is out of focus and he just looks like this shadow figure bathing in the light. And they do, when she's going up the stairs with him, they're doing very quick cuts between Porter and Rael. And it's very much like out of focus, in focus. So it's almost like you're seasick when you're doing this.
It is.
And the sound team gives you this very heavy, labored breathing while they're going up the stairs. And so you feel like you're trapped in this dream with Rael. So well done, director and sound team, for this scene. It's beautiful. I want to note, yes, the editing is awesome. Very quick cuts. It's very jarring. I want to note that the only time during this whole sequence when Porter is in focus is the memory with Scylla. When they're having a conversation, it's Porter and Scylla, and that's the only time he's in focus, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Focused on Scylla and is picking that up.
Yeah, I think it has to do with their connection, and that made that in focus, but the rest of the stuff was not in focus.
Because I really feel like there's something to the idea that, I don't know if I would say it's specific to Rael and Scylla, but their relationship links them in a way that gives her more access, I guess. I don't know what I'll work out what I'm trying to say someday, but I just feel like it makes a difference in
I,
if Scylla had been a stranger, I think it would have been different.
I was thinking initially too that maybe like Scylla's work clouds that and makes it so you can't focus. But when he shows up to the door before he goes in the room, he's also out of focus. So that can't be it.
Mm,
So I think it's something to do with her connection to Scylla that made that very
yeah.
starkly in focus versus everything else was out of focus.
Yes. Like she needs to see that clearly.
Yeah.
For one thing.
Or like that's the thing she can see clearly because of her connection to Scylla. So
Yeah. And that's the information she was really seeking anyway.
exactly. Exactly. So well played with that scene. It was beautiful and there's a lot going on there. So we cut from that really tragic PTSD vision to the start of Beltane, where Tally and Abigail are all dressed to the nines at these tables. This looks like a wedding, like ornate trees on the table. They're all dressed fancy, white tablecloths, the whole shebang for all the banging that's about to go down.
Oh my god, what a line.
Thank you, thank you.
Did you practice that?
I mean, I wrote it down. I was thinking about this scene.
I love it.
So they're like basically biding their time waiting for Raylla to show up because they all have to participate as a unit. And so Raylla does show up, much to Tally's relief, wearing this fly ass suit with no undershirt. So well played, Lesbian Jesus. And Tally is all of us, where she's like, "You're late, but you look hot, so it's fine." Which,
Yeah.
yes. And
Accurate.
then Abigail says, "I was prepared to glamour you guys, but I guess I won't need to." What the hell is she talking about?
Is she saying? I think she's how I read it was that she's also complimenting Raylla, but
Is she? She's like, "I was gonna glamour you so that you'd show up and look hot, but
well,
you did it yourself, so good job."
yeah, like well, I didn't have confidence in your ability to dress yourself, but here we are, and you look great.
But also, like, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't glamoring make you attracted to the glamorer? So that's why I was confused. I'm like, what is Abigail saying with this?
I don't think she's saying it as work.
Okay. Because that's witch's work, the word glamour.
Yeah, it is. I think she meant it in a fashion sense or a looking good sense.
Okay.
Which is confusing. No, the line confused me too, but
it's also Abigail, so I'm like, I wouldn't put you past you to actually work glamour these people.
Yeah.
To like get ahead. So anyway.
Truth.
But Raylla just looks super out of it, and what ends up happening as they're now reunited, Tally sees Garrett flirting with somebody else, and she gets upset and she just leaves. And then Abigail tries her version of empathy with Raylla, and she's like, "Listen, I can see it on your face. Something's going on, but like, get your head in the game." And I think this is like her trying to give Raylla an honest pep talk, because this is probably like a bellwether pep talk. It's like, "Hey, I know you have feelings, but don't like focus on the game. Do it for Tally." And Raylla's like, "Listen, again, you still don't know how to talk to me. I'm here." And then she leaves. And we get like a couple of seconds of Abigail just looking genuinely upset and down. And I think this is like, again, like all the pressure is really getting to Abigail, and she's kind of struggling with it. And this is like the start of like a big Abigail arc going forward.
Like when they first come to the table, you see Abigail looking sad and sticking her finger in that flower. It's like she's just lost in contemplation of how much she doesn't want to fail.
Yeah, no, totally. And like, this is her worst fear potentially coming to fruition. So, so she's just like kind of out of it a little bit. But then her boy toy shows up and she just focuses on the game. And she's just like, "Okay, hey guys, let's flirt for Beltane." And she takes her own advice she just gave Raylla.
Yeah, flirt for Beltane.
Flirt for Beltane.
But while that's all going on, Tally is off to confront Tansy, our junior matrimonialist, who sees right through everything that's going on to what Tally is upset about.
She sees everything at Beltane.
She does.
That's how she knew Mama Costia's story better than Mama Costia.
Sees everything.
She sees everything.
So she basically gives Tally a pep talk about trust the real, trust Beltane, put you on the right path. You'll get the thing that's supposed to happen. And Tally's like, "But I want this thing." And she's like, "If it's supposed to happen, it'll happen." So everyone's kind of telling Tally to chill out, and Tally can't chill out.
No, Tally cannot. Thirsty Tally knows no chill.
Thirsty Tally does not know any chill. She just wants what was in that drawing.
Yes, she wants Garrett, and that's it.
Exactly. Well, she goes right on back to Abigail after she talks to Tansy and doesn't get any kind of relief from her being so extra. And says, Abigail, I need to talk to you. This is like such a Tally thing. She does this so many times throughout the series where she goes up to one of them and is like, I need to talk to you.
She's like the extrovert that has to process her feelings by talking to other people.
Exactly. She really is.
She is.
So she pulls Abigail comes and talks to her and gives her Abigail's version of a pep talk where men are concerned and says, there are more men out there than Garrett. You need to mix and mingle. And I really think she should have taken this advice because I think it also would have driven Garrett bananas. And it kind of does later in a way, but at the same time, Tally still is not getting the answers she wants.
No, she just wants confirmation that, like, you can have Garrett if you do this, and no one's telling her that.
But I do like Abigail's line, you never really lose a guy, just your turn.
Yeah, that's like
such a witch thing to say.
No, it totally, and like this gets explained in the next episode when they talk about like witch marriages, but like that's literally what it is.
Literally what it is, yeah.
She's right.
Stud horses, basically, my takeaway.
Mares. We will get to that. But yeah, I love it. Abigail just again projecting her misandry, and I love it.
Yeah,
onto little Tally, thirsty Tally. All right, so after we discuss Abigail's take on dudes, we shoot over to Raylla, who's sulking at a table by herself when the dude that gave her the scourge from earlier shows up in his purple suit. Like, Raylla, come on. And he brings her 2 drinks. And his opening line, which I love.
It's so amazing.
Is, hello there. Sell when you can. You are not for all markets. And like, what is this? Queer witch code? Like quoting Shakespeare's to other friends of Dorothy or Glinda, I guess, because we're talking about witches. And Raylla's gaydar is turned off because
she's in PTSD Porterland, so she can't read the room.
Yeah, she has Porter's stuff in her brain, so she can't pick it up.
And he obviously didn't have any gaydar, so
obviously. So she's like, listen, dude, do you not sense my lesbian Jesus vibe? I'm basking in my golden light, like in this fly-ass suit. Like, come on out. And the dude is like, yeah, I have gaydar. That's why I'm here. Do you not sense that we're besties? Like, come on. I also
we're meant to be besties.
We're meant to be besties. I am also not interested in girls. And she's like,
oh, fair enough.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, yes. Got it.
We can talk now.
And he introduces himself. This is Byron, who's great. And he reveals that he was a friend of Porter and he wanted to thank her for trying to save his life. And so this piques Raylla's interest because here's somebody else who actually knew Porter in the post-dodging days. And so she talks to him or presses him about Porter. And Byron basically says, like, you know, it's weird. He wasn't depressed. He was actually looking forward to Beltane. And the guy I knew wouldn't have killed himself. But then he says this line that I really love. But maybe we never really know other people. And that line definitely strikes a nerve with Raylla because she's sitting with all this doubt about Scylla. And here Byron is like voicing that out loud. Maybe you don't know Scylla. And yeah, girl, you don't. You don't. So with this new train of thought, Raylla asks about Scylla, and Byron says, well, Porter said he knew her, like back in the day, and he mentioned that he was going to go see her that night. So here's Raylla getting confirmation that her visions aren't crazy, that like Scylla was there. And Scylla, again, was evading giving Raylla an actual answer of substance and not just a nothing answer. So with her fears all confirmed, Raylla just excuses herself because she's just agitated. And she goes to find Scylla.
Oh, dear.
Before we get to the scene, I have to state for the record, I am a Scylla Ramshorn stand first, human being second. And with that, I am going to express negative opinions about Scylla because this is the one scene I don't like her in. It hurts so bad.
I have to add my own self into that because we're both Scylla Ramshorn stands first. Just FYI.
Yeah. I get why she's doing this, but I hate watching her in the scene.
It's painful.
Yeah. It's very painful. But One thing I find very interesting is I think this scene that's about to happen parallels her last scene with Porter, and I'm gonna get into that. So Raylla finds Scylla, which, okay, Scylla's at a table drinking with a bunch of the Necros. And, like, did Isadora know about this? She's like, yeah, you can have one drink before the big experiment. Like, I feel like Isadora would be like, no drinking, we're gonna do magic. What are you doing? So, was this licensed by Isadora? I don't know. But she's chatting with the Necros. She's like, yeah, no more drinks, I gotta go. And Raylla just grabs her, and she's like, we need to talk right now. And Scylla puts on this very fake smile and tries to, like, brush her off and be like, no, I have...
Placate her.
Not even that. She's just like, I have something to do that's important. Like, let's do this later, whatever this is. And Raylla is like, I can't do this later. This is about Porter. And that's what gets Scylla's attention. And so Scylla panics and pulls Raylla further aside, away from all the Beltane festivities. And she puts the smile back on. And Raylla's like, listen, I'm talking to other people that know him, that's saying he wasn't suicidal. I'm having these visions. And I saw you. Like, you were there. And Raylla, as she's delivering this, is getting very angry. And, like, her own anger is coming out. So it's trumping, like, the Porter feelings that she's having. And Raylla is just, like, begging. She's like, listen, like, I can't make sense of this. I'm confused. I need you to tell me what's going on. And she's, like, genuinely freaking out in this scene and begging Scylla to help her. And Scylla, throughout this whole conversation, while Raylla is having a breakdown, keeps looking at the Necrolab. Because Scylla has something important to do, which is cover her own ass. And so I hate the scene because it's very much where Scylla's head is right now. She's about Scylla and Scylla's survival mode and doesn't even acknowledge the fact that Raylla is actually freaking out and, like, tries to help her. She's just like, I got things to do over at that lab. Like, she's not with Raylla in this conversation. But Raylla is not getting any answers again. So she just gets more and more angry, and she's like, tell me the truth. Like, did you see him? Like, I asked you this already and you didn't answer me. Answer me now. And Scylla flips on the gaslighting and turns this, and this is exactly what she did in the Porter conversation. When Porter got close to outing her as a spree agent, she threw all the onus on Porter. It's the spree playbook. It's like, placate them for a minute. When they get too close, gaslight them with a bunch of questions. And that's what Scylla does. She's like, well, what if I did see him? What are you implying? That I did something? Is that what you think of me? She did this exact same thing to Porter. And what's interesting here is that when she's talking to Raylla, her voice in the gaslighting is very shaky. Like, she's, like, kind of struck by this too, by what she did, kind of, and, like, the consequences of all this, I think, are weighing on Scylla right now. And so she's voicing her own doubts and fears when she's gaslighting Raylla, which is a little different. Because, again, like we mentioned earlier, she hasn't been able to process her own actions. She's just been in action mode this whole time, and I think she hasn't processed anything. So that kind of, like, emerges here. And I don't think Raylla was expecting the gaslighting. I think this is the first time Scylla really gaslit her like this. And she was like, wait, no, I'm not implying that I'm just confused. Like, I don't know what's happening, and this isn't adding up. And Raylla starts freaking out again. She runs her hands through her hair. She's stammering. And Scylla looks again to the Macro Lab, because that's where Scylla's head is. So Scylla just does a Hail Mary. She's like, listen, do you care about me? Let's cut to the point.
Because that's the part that killed me so much.
Let's cut to the point, because this is what happened with Porter, too. She knew Porter cared, and so what she did is she lowered his defenses by kissing him and then pushed him to do what she wanted. But she doesn't do that with Raylla. What she does is she plays on the same thing. She's like, I know you care about me, so I'm just going to, again, put the onus on you. Like, do you care about me? And Raylla's automatically like, yes, obviously I care about you, because Raylla is just always a heart on her sleeve kind of person. Like, and she's very much in season 1 a slave to her emotions at all time. And Scylla is playing on that. And she's like, okay, great. Then you need to just trust me and stop going down this road. Like, just stop asking these questions. Like, I think she's saying this, like, for your own sanity and, like, to cover my ass. You need to stop doing this. And Scylla really gets emotional when she's like, please don't go down this road. Like, she's like, you hear the emotions come out. It's, again, different than the Porter stuff where she's just like, fuck it, I have to kill you, and just acts like she
has real emotions.
Yeah, I think she's worried about a bunch of stuff right now, but she's like, please don't go down this road. Like, I don't want to have to kill you too. I think it's part of this too. Because, yeah, I think not only will that force her to do other actions, but I think it will, in her mind too, like, shatter the illusion of what they potentially have anyway, because it's all a game, and, like, Scylla's catching feelings, and so there's a lot of complexity to this statement.
There is. She's really scared of it going away too, and I think that she was enjoying being in that little bubble of their relation. So she was just enjoying being in their own little world of Rael and Scylla, and I think she was kind of pretending that it wasn't the case sometimes, that this was all a mission or a game. Like, I don't know. Like, she could let herself slip into that occasionally.
Yeah, I was going to say that I agree with what you're saying, and I think we see that in another scene later on in the episode, like the final scene, that like Scylla enjoys again the illusion of what they have, when it's like
Yep.
just the two of them and nobody else, none of this spree and army stuff. Like she is enjoying their little the illusion of their relationship, basically. And so I think that's part of what she's afraid of. And she's just afraid in general because she might get outed, and she wasn't expecting Isadora to be like, let's let your ex talk. So
Yeah.
she's freaking out. But I think ultimately in this scene here, her mind is with Porter's dead body.
Exactly, it is.
And her own self-preservation. Because again, this is Scylla the Dodger in survival mode. This is Scylla trying not to get outed. And so even though it hurts me in this scene because she doesn't even acknowledge Rael's feelings. She just is like, whatever, you can't have these feelings right now. I need to not get outed. So whatever, we'll talk later. And so it hurts, but like I get why she's doing it. And so Scylla just, again, is like, I gotta go, and just walks away from a very confused Rael, and just, it hurts to watch this.
And Scylla's body language, that entire conversation, the way she's like holding her hands out, it's like placating, but almost like holding Rael back in a sense. Yeah. It's like, don't come any closer right now. I have other things. I gotta go.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And like this whole thing is just my own personal song for the two of them, which you already know. Cue State of Grace by Taylor Swift's version, because that's Scylla's headspace when it comes to Rael. Like, I never saw you coming, and it just affected me forever. And that's what's happening to Scylla.
I have a lot of songs for them. I'm that weirdo that has detailed playlists for each character, going from the first episode of the series all the way through season 2. So
same. Listeners, if you have a song for the two of them, we can make a Big Witch Energy playlist.
We can.
Send it to us. Send us your songs for any character, including Isadora. So,
including Isadora. I want Isadora songs.
Oh my god, me too. If you have Isadora songs, I don't have an Isadora playlist, weirdly enough. Send them to me. Besties.
What's on there? Weird Science?
It's like the Monster Mash. Like, I don't even know. The Scientist by Coldplay. I don't know. Just throw that out there. But State of Grace by Taylor Swift is Scylla's headspace in this whole freaking episode. Just throwing that out there.
From the painful scene of
the gaslighting
to the real, we get to Tansy speaking about the real, and the way that she's talking about it, I feel like she's in love with the real.
Right. Like, she's just like, the real reeled me in forever. Yeah. And that's how I became a matrimonialist.
Yeah, she's so into the real because it's not just a dance, it's a divine ritual that knows you. Yes. I'm like, why don't you and the real go make out? Because
they do while everybody else is doing their thing.
She says this one line that I don't know why, but it cracks me up. Maybe you can enlighten me as to why this is so funny to me. Tonight is about pleasure, and pleasure you will have.
Yeah, I do love that.
Wow, where did you get that from?
It's the Tansy special.
It's the Tansy special cheese.
Yep.
Pleasure cheese. So Rael hasn't shown up for the real yet, but she does at the last moment, and Tally thanks her. Everyone's taking off their shoes, and then the dance begins. And I don't know how the hell Rael gets through this dance, because she has got to be, her head is reeling in a different direction than the reel is reeling.
Right.
But the entire dance is this mix of improv and actual choreography. It's really cool, and I like the song that they use.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same, and you see like everyone moving around with different, people, and by the end you see Rael with Byron, Tally with Garrett, and Abigail with her boys. So everybody's kind of mixed and matched in there with the people they're supposed to end up with.
Yeah. So just a little note on that. When Tansy says like the pleasure line, she basically says whatever pleasure means to you. And Elliot kind of talks about this a little bit, like with the real. And he says that, for Tally and Abigail, obviously they're trying to get their orgy on. But like for Raylla, at this moment, what she needed was a shoulder to cry on. And so
It was a
that's
friend.
right. So that's why the real picks Byron. So whatever pleasure means to you, unburdening her burdens was what Raylla needed. So
She
just
needed a friend outside of the unit.
right. Just again, they were in the headspace to comfort Raylla right now. So that's what pleasure meant to Raylla. So I like that it's not just about the super cool sex party, it's about whatever you needed through the real.
Exactly. And that's what Tansy tries to bring home over and over again.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Everyone pays attention to sex before they pay attention to
right. It's a fertility festival. So like we get that.
Fertility festival.
But I just want to point that out because Raylla is very different headspace from everybody else.
Exactly. Because the one person that she would end up with in the real is gaslighting her.
She's doing damage control in the Necro Labs.
Yes, that's where she is. So take us there.
Well, Scylla, again, twat blocked herself because
yes, she did.
She ruined Beltane for the Necros, including herself. There's that. Other thing that happens during this dance. Abigail and Libba dance with each other.
Yes,
Go back and watch that.
Oh my God, yes.
So, I mean, what does pleasure mean to you, Abigail and Libba?
Yeah.
So there's
Maybe
that sighting.
You should have gotten in on that Abigail and
just saying.
Clive
just saying. Whatever. Second thing about this. Shout out to Sarah Alder and her Wonder Woman cosplay.
Oh my God, yes, it is a Wonder. It's like so Wonder Woman.
Yes, I love it. The first time I saw it, I was like, she's marching through this dance like Wonder Woman in that outfit. So whoever came up with that, good on you.
Costumer, good.
Yes, yes, because that's accurate.
Also, I'd like to point out that Libba walks away with two guys as well, so she's matching.
Exactly. Their headspace is always, if I can't have Abigail or if I can't have Libba, I'm getting two dudes. That's what they both did. Love it. So
there you go.
It's all right there. And last thing I wanted to talk about is just a little color theory because everybody's in these super colorful outfits. But I kind of wanted to talk about the unit and the colors that they're in. So Tally is wearing yellow, like very yellow dress. And so yellow as a color can symbolize like happiness and optimism. So Tally is trying to be optimistic that she's going to get Garrett in the real. So that's her color. And then Abigail is in this like orangey, peachy kind of outfit, which can mean like vitality and extrovertedness because I think Abigail was very much in her own head with all this like pressure stuff with like the bellwether stuff. So she's trying to like project like being the best soldier and being out of her head versus in her head. So that's the color. And then Raylla is very much in black because she's in like a state of mourning right now. So very interesting that wardrobe picked these colors for them because I think it's very reflective of their headspaces going into the real.
I also appreciate that suit so much.
We all do. And note, she wore the buttons. She knew how to button it for once, which if you didn't, Raylla, you'd be in trouble.
You would really be in trouble, ma'am. I don't know.
And then last thing, just kind of from after the storm about this. So Elliot talks about sexuality in the witch community. And so, because again, you have Raylla and Byron in this episode who are not interested in the other gender. And the way he talks about it is that like basically being gay and straight doesn't matter in this world that they're in. What matters in the witch community is performing your duty for the army. So they're like, you can be with whoever you want, but we're going to need you to make witch babies at some point because those are the soldiers and that's how we get more soldiers. So they don't care when it comes to relationships about like love or anything like that. It's all about making new witches when the time comes is basically what this is. So Elliot, good on you, created a world where sexuality doesn't really exist. But the consequence of that is that they're forced to have like babies at some point. So just wanted to add that.
Gross.
Yes, when that's the only way to make witches, it comes at a consequence.
Well, I mean, they don't even have to hand fast, technically. I mean, they don't have to hand fast. That's my point. To make witch babies.
No. But whatever. That's a discussion for later.
Conversation for later.
Just wanted to throw that out there because we get like two like queer characters from the men and the women in this episode that I find fascinating.
Yes.
But we cut away from the start of the sex party to the Necro Lab, where there's no sex happening. And Isadora couldn't be more thrilled. And so I want to note that in the Necro Lab, this is a very blue scene. So this is a Scylla light scene.
This is Scylla's world.
This is Scylla's world. It's very blue.
We're all
And
just living in it.
In the scene, the Porter's body's or his corpse is propped up on this like vertical gurney. Porter's body is locked in the lab, and Scylla in her little coat comes in very suspiciously. And she tries to get in the door, but it's like hella locked and she can't break through, which I find interesting because Scylla's really powerful. So whoever locked this must be more powerful than her. And my money's on Isadora.
Oh, it was Isadora completely.
She's not fucking around. She's like, nobody is touching my experiment. So Scylla is not thrilled with this. And she's like, fuck, okay, well, I need to do something else. So she spots the thermometer and she's like, all right, well, let's heat this up. So the spree music starts playing and she does some kind of chant. And you see that the thermometer go up to like 100 degrees Celsius or something. I don't know. Fahrenheit.
My question is she speaking mother tongue?
I couldn't figure out the language.
You can't hear you can't really hear the words well enough, but that was one of my first thoughts. It's like she's not singing a scene.
Right. Nothing.
She's saying words. And I'm like, it kind of sounded like the mother tongue that we hear in the show.
It's possible. Nothing was augmenting in her voice. It was just her chanting. But I don't know. Maybe that's a necro thing because they chant later too and their voices don't really augment. So maybe it's necro magic. I don't know. Explain, Elliot. Explain the necros does. But anyway, she's increasing the temperature because, again, Isadora said the key phrase, body has to stay cold for this to work. So she's like, well, let's heat this bitch because so it doesn't work. So she's trying to sabotage Isadora's big experiment. And then who comes in? Isadora skips into the room carrying a canary in a cage, and all her little necro minions are following behind her. And Scylla is like, oh, fuck. And somebody finds her and is like, great, you made it. Come into the room. Let's get this experiment going. Started. And like Isadora is just like beaming in this room. Like, again, it's like the greatest day on the world. And that's kind of where the scene ends. They're about to start their big ritual while Beltane is happening, basically.
Yeah, and then unfortunately for us, we have to go away from Necroland.
We'll come back, don't worry.
We'll come back, but right now we're going to be with Tally and Garrett, who are undressing under a tree, or against a tree, I should say, and making out. So, go get it, Tally.
Get it, Tally. Thirsty Tally.
Thirsty Tally's getting what she wants. And then we see Abigail with her boys.
Oh my God.
Being lavish with attention. General Alder and Witchfather, who are on what looks like a literal altar in the middle of everyone.
Listen.
Displaying their Wonder Woman sex for all to see.
She has her O in style this episode.
She does.
It's so extra.
I think it's fun that Abigail tells her boys to make out.
I love that.
They're totally into it.
Great. Again, because sexuality doesn't matter. They're just like, whatever.
And then later on, she's like, okay, back to me.
Yeah, when they get too into it with each other, she's like, no.
Exactly. Me.
I love it.
Come back.
Abigail.
And the only people not having sex
are the gabies.
Are Byron and Raylla. I assume there are other people engaged in same-sexing around the area.
Oh yeah, there's definitely same-sex groups that like went off together when like the real split up.
Yeah.
But it's not this one.
No, it's not this one.
It's not this one.
So we got Byron and Raylla who's laying down, listening to everyone have sex and kind of being salty about it. We get it, you're having sex.
I love that this is so realistic because whenever you're in like heterosexual parties, like the gays flock together and are like, let's us go hang out and do something else. So it's so realistic. I love it.
It is. I want to know, I have a question about Byron. I wonder if they named him Byron because of Lord Byron.
But you'd imagine that he'd be more slutty in this whole episode if that's why they were naming him Byron.
You would, but at the same time, I don't know. Just my question.
I mean, he did open with Shakespeare, which is something I feel like Lord Byron would do.
Absolutely.
So, potentially.
We don't know what he did when he wasn't hanging out with Raylla, but he was there for Raylla, so.
True.
Anyway, she asked Byron if he's ever been in love, and he jokes like every week. So that is very Byron-y.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That is very Lord Byron-y. It's pretty slutty. So, all right. I'm with you. You're convincing me.
But Raylla is serious, so she asks, What would you do if you were so in love with someone the first time Raylla says that she's in love with Scylla, and maybe they'd done something wrong, something unforgivable?
I have to point out the lesbian behavior here. It's been 3 days and Rail's
It's
already
been 3
so
days.
in love with her. So, lesbian Jesus argument.
Yes. She's so in love with Scylla, which is interesting. We get to hear this, her saying this to a character she doesn't really know that well. And she hasn't said anything to anyone else, as
I
far
mean,
as we know.
sometimes it's easier to
It
like
is easier to unload to, that's what I'm
unload.
saying, is like
Yeah.
she can unload to Byron because he doesn't have any connection with anyone that's like solidly in her life.
Yeah, this is why the real picked him. Rail needed somebody to
Exactly.
unload to. Yeah.
Thank you. So she's asked this very heavy question, and she's laying there wondering what Scylla's done. So is it unforgivable that she thinks that she might have killed Porter? Is it unforgivable that she thinks something happened between Porter and Scylla?
I think Rail has put together the fact that Scylla had her hand in Porter dying. I think she
Absolutely.
already put that together. And so she's like, which makes it very interesting where they go from here, where she's like, I kind of acknowledge the fact that you might be a murderer, but
Mm-hmm.
I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, that's how I feel about female murderers. So, Rail, I get you. Yeah.
No, we get you.
We get you. It's fine. So, yeah, I think she's coming to terms and accepting that. And then, then Byron continues.
Yeah. So Byron has a very poignant line. Is, I guess you have to decide if that person's worth it and then fight for them. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So that's where Raylla, like you see Raylla take that and run with it in the scene later on when they make up.
Yeah, he also says, like, we all have our fatal flaws, don't we?
Yeah.
He's like, we're all flawed. We're humans, which, again, is reality. Thank you, Elliot.
Yeah. So he's kind of saying, if you've got this giant love, you have to decide if that person is worth you fighting for them. And obviously, since Rael's a lesbian, she is. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, again, it's been 3 days and she's already so in love, she's willing to look past murdering. So,
exactly. Here we are.
typical lesbian behavior. So, what's happening here?
So we go from this super heavy conversation about love and.
Oh, wait. Before we exit the scene, Byron brings up the codices.
Oh, the codices! Yes.
Which is Wooing Witches 101. So
I don't know how I missed that in my notes. Yeah, no. He brings up the guidebook for love and dating, the codices, and tells her that that's what Garrett followed to get Tally to the T, and that the drawing of the dick pic was actually a generic dick pic from the book.
So Abigail was right.
Abigail was right. I mean, I never doubted her.
Poor baby thirsty virgin Tally was like, I don't care, whatever.
Yeah, like she just fell for it hook, line, and sinker. I don't think she really cared how she knew he was faking. He was being a fakey McFakerson, but she was excited about all the lavish attention and everything.
Yeah.
So I give her a pass on that. And the codices come up later, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, so we get introduced to the Wooing Witches book. So that's what while the women are like fighting and learning wind shear, this is what the dudes are doing.
Exactly, learning how to romance.
Yeah, it's like finishing school is what I think about.
Yeah, it is. Finishing school for boys.
Finishing school for boys. Yeah, exactly. And then Byron also brings up the whole like replenishing the troops thing with Raelle, where he's like, hey, I know you're not into. Yeah. So again, the reality of their situation is like, if you're ever ready to have babies, I'd be honored to do it with you, because like I don't want to make babies, you don't want to make babies, but we'll have to. Our kids would be cute. Let's put it at that.
It's true though; they would be so cute.
They would be. So
I kind of want
throwing that out there.
Byron Raelle babies, just the baby. Like they don't have to have sex or anything. Just
I know, Isadora, figure out a way around that.
Yeah. No, like we have a way around that. They don't have to have sex. Just give them the. Anyway,
whatever.
That's very NC-17. Before we cut away from them, they do go right back to being hilarious and making sex noises. And it just confirms that they're my favorite bro TP.
Oh, mine's Anacostia and Scylla, but
well, no. I mean, like in season 1.
In season 1, yes.
They're not bro TPs yet, Theora.
They are in my mind. They hate each other, but it's so funny. Yeah, no, they're funny. They're participating, quote unquote, in Beltane.
Yes, that's their participation, making fun of everyone else.
Making fun of everyone else, which is wonderful.
Very Raylla.
Again, she doesn't give a shit about the She loves the army so much.
So much.
So much.
He would send the army a dick pic.
She would. So we cut away from that and then go into a sequence of 3 things happening simultaneously. There's the super cool sex party, the army security checking the mirrors for spree magic, and the not so sexy necro party in the lab. And so I'm just going to group these 3 things together because in the show they intercut. So I'm just going to group them and talk about them all at once. So let's start with the mirror thing. So Mama Costia, Junior Matrimonialist, and Mama Bellwether are all like going throughout all the barracks and checking these mirrors for the spree magic. Because as Sarah Alder mentioned previously, like in a couple episodes ago, she's like, we figured out that the spree magic leaves behind a residue that we can trace. So it's like a breadcrumb trail that will lead them to spree magic. So what they're doing is they're going up to the mirrors because Mama Bellwether's like, hey, it's the mirrors. That's how they're communicating. And they take this tuning fork. So the tuning fork is basically what it, if you're not familiar with music, if you tap it, it will play a certain pitch. And then usually the singer, the instrument, or whatever will try and match the pitch. So it's a pitch that's really specific to locating this magic. So they tap it against the mirror and then they sing to match the note. And the mirror will distort and you start seeing these little sparks or like spider web kind of things ripple through the mirror. And then they'll breathe on the glass. And I guess that helps them locate the breadcrumbs of the spree magic so they can trace it. And this keeps happening, and nobody finds any spree magic. The closest person that comes to it is Petra. So she checks, I assume, Scylla's room. Again, I'm not sure because we get, spoiler, there's more than one spree agent as we find out. So I think it's Scylla's room, but I don't know. She does the whole sequence of stuff, checks the mirror, then as she turns away, the blue balloon pops up. So it worked, but I guess there's a delay in finding the magic, and Petra didn't know this. So that's what's happening in the security sweep.
Oopsie doopsie.
Nobody actually finds spree magic, even though there's spree magic in the mirrors. Meanwhile, back at the super cool sex party, everyone is just getting it on to fight the spree. So Tally is
charged up.
They're fighting the spree through this sex party. And so Tally is losing her V card and getting her Beltane on. Good for her. Then Alder, again, is like the pinnacle of all this. She is getting it on with Witchfather. And I guess this is the power couple that's going to fuel Isadora's experiment. And I have to. Okay, so you mentioned they're on an altar. And Sarah is surrounded by the biddies. So it's almost like this big ass ritual that's happening here. And when she gets the O, she like throws herself back and all the biddies do it too. And literal bats swarm all of Fort Salem in this like sexy ceremonial witch thing. And it's just like, that's some power right there, is all I'm saying. Summons literal bats from God knows where, and they just swarm the entire of Fort Salem.
It's a super cool ritual, but I'm still stuck on how the biddies get the big O as well.
They are connected, and that's all I want to know. But they all do the same motion, so the biddies are getting something too by proxy, because that's just the big witch energy that Alder has, I guess, with her sexcapades. So that's the super cool sex party. And then back at the sexless necro lab. So Isadora is acting like they're having a sex party. She cannot contain her own ecstasy as she's surrounded by these minions in their lab coats. And she explains they're going to open the death current with 2 seeds. So first is seed 46, the seed of anamnesis, which I looked up the word because I was like, interesting word. So it means 2 things. From a philosophy standpoint, it means the remembering of things from a supposed previous existence, because they're trying to get Porter to talk. And medicinally, it means a patient's account of a medical history. So how did you die, Porter?
How'd you die, boy?
So that's literally what that word means. So that's
You're taking a history and physical from a dead guy.
Yeah, exactly. From a supposed previous existence. So that's what's happening here with that seed. The second seed is seed 59, the seed of restoration. And when they start doing this seed, it sounds like this tribal war chant. Like it's very deep.
It really does.
Very breathy, very rhythmic chanting. And you kind of don't really hear their voices augment right away. It takes a while. So I'm thinking, I don't know if the necromagic is a little bit different, but that was my vibes from that seed. And as they're doing both of these seeds, you start seeing Porter's body animating and twitching a little bit. And it cuts to Scylla, who is not chanting at all. Like, again, bad necro. She's just panicking as this whole thing goes down. And then as they get closer and closer to, quote unquote, the window closing, because like the sex party's fizzling out, the bird in the cage, without being told anything, is like, fuck it, it's time. And the bird just burrows into Porter's
mouth, and it's so creepy.
It's super creepy. But I have to talk about the bird for a second. So it's a yellow canary is the bird. And I was wondering, why did they pick a canary? So a canary is like a typical songbird. And so spiritually, and like you can almost, they call it like a totem. So canary is kind of like a totem or like a spirit animal. It symbolizes like, as a songbird, embracing the power of one's voice. So the bird is the mechanism to get him to talk. So I think that's why they picked a canary. And also it can mean more like from an emotional, psychological kind of meaning. The canary totem shows up when one needs to eliminate depression in their life. So I think it's like a way to help this tortured dead person pass on, which I think is why Raylla's headache goes away later, when Porter alleviates his burden kind of thing. And a yellow canary, because canaries come in different colors. Yellow, again, color theory, is synonymous with the sun and sun gods. So I think that's the link to Raylla.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real. And so that's the canary. And so the canary, after it goes inside Porter's trachea, we then get Porter's eyes opening. And it's very rudely cuts to a commercial break. So if you're watching this live, that's mean. I have to throw that out there. Why? For the drama. So then when we come back, because we're streaming now, we don't have to deal with this nonsense, Porter gives his final words. And basically, Isadora asks him 3 questions, because that's how long the climax goes on for. And basically, he confirms that he did kill himself. He says the last person he saw was Witch Father, which surprises the shit out of Scylla. And then he says, no, my death had nothing to do with the spree. And then the sex party ends, the window's closed, and the bird literally fucks off and just like goes outside a vent. Like, no one told this bird what to do ever. It's just like, bye, I talked, fuck
I'm
you.
out.
And
fuck
it literally,
you, I'm out.
It fucks off.
It's like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah, that's the bird. So the bird has big witch energy in my book. It just fucks off. And then the spree music starts playing, and Scylla just has this look of, oh, hot damn, I just got away with this on her face. And she's like, I don't know how, I don't care. Hail Beltane, I just got away with this.
The relief is palpable.
Yeah, thank you, little death canary, for what you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Little death canary.
Little death canary.
Ooh, that's a band name.
Little Death Canary. Scylla Ramshorn of the Canary of Death. That's our book title for this episode.
Perfect. That's the book title for this episode. I love it.
Yes.
So yeah, Scylla's relieved, and after that, we go to post Beltane with Raylla and the gang, walking back from the festivities. Tally is on cloud 9 and skipping around, trying to get someone to ask her about her witch mark. Abigail is avoiding at all costs, but Raylla finally bites and gives her what she wants and says she can't see Tally's hair because of the big shiny mark on her neck.
Yep. So Tally finally can flash her own shiny witch mark.
Exactly. But Abigail tells Raylla not to feed the I finally had sex monster.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that line. But Tally being Tally pivots away from her own happiness to ask Raylla about her headache. And this is when Raylla realizes, because she didn't even notice that it was gone, that it's gone. And like you said, because the whole Porter thing has been resolved, quote unquote. That's when Abigail takes the chance to invite them to her cousin's wedding, which Tally is all for because she's super into weddings, which is not a surprise in the least. Raylla, on the other hand, is not jazzed about this, but she agrees to do it as long as she doesn't have to wear pink or whatever High Atlantics wear.
Which, relatable, Raylla.
I'm like, wow, Raylla, you are the gayest gay to ever gay.
Exactly. She's grounded in reality. Thank you, writers.
Yes. So Abigail's like, nah, bitch, we wear our uniforms. Which makes sense, because of the Bellwether wedding, you would wear your uniform.
She's like, we go as a unit, which is again, like it's showing that they're
I was just
bonding.
about to say the
It's
way that she
cute.
says as a unit,
Yeah.
Abigail's saying it with affection this
Yes.
time. So she's not trying to preach to Raylla that this is what she's saying. We're doing this together because we're a unit,
It's
and
cute.
you're my girls,
Yeah,
is
it's
what
cute.
she's saying.
You're my witches, to call
You're
back to
my
Tally.
witches. This is Abigail's moment of you're my witches. Tally has it very early on because she's Tally.
And she's drunk, so
Yes, and she's drunk.
yeah. So big moment for Abigail. I love it.
Big moment. But then Raylla spots Scylla standing to the side of the path and does like her, oh my god, there she is kind of thing. And but she's afraid that Abigail's about to say something. And so she kind of tries to stop her from making a negative comment, but Abigail's like, I didn't say shit.
Yeah.
So she's finally kind of like not gonna pick on Raylla for the Scylla thing. But then we get into the next scene, which is I like to call sweet, sweet lies.
Or another romantic moment in front of a live oak. This is the
Yes.
second one in this episode.
Yes. So we cut to them walking in this beautiful setting with all the trees around them and the flowers bloomed, and it's very beautiful. You get the sunlight coming through the trees, and while they're walking through like this clearing, it's shining right on them. And Scylla gives Raylla a flower.
It's so cute.
It's so cute. And she says, I want to tell you the truth. But do you really?
I think she does.
She does.
She
She
does.
really does, but she can't.
You can hear it in her voice when she
You
talks.
can hear it. She's like actually vulnerable, and that's not a place that Scylla is very comfortable or familiar with.
No.
So she's actually literally coming to the realization that she has skin in this game. Like, or heart. Her heart is in this game now.
Yes.
So she tells Raylla that she did see Porter that night and he wanted to get back together, which is true in a way, but not what he was there for.
I mean, we discussed this ad nauseum last time.
Yes, we
basically
did.
That's why he was there.
Yeah. So Scylla says that she didn't want to get back together, and then she goes to that she wants to tell Raylla some other truths, and this is the part that really makes her nervous. Yeah. The part before was kind of to get to this because she's about to reveal something huge for Scylla, which is why she's so nervous and freaking out a little bit. She's like the poor little scared Dodger murder nugget.
Yeah.
And so Raylla tries to speak at that moment, but Scylla says that she needs to get this out before she freaks out, shuts down, and runs away. Because she's a Dodger. So
yeah, she's fighting her own instincts right now.
Exactly.
So it's a big deal.
It is a huge deal. And she says, I like you, okay? I have feelings for you, and they're not something I'm used to having. It's not something she's used to dealing with because she's a Dodger, which means no attachments. Because things go away. We go away. And she hasn't learned to get past this yet, but she's trying. And as soon as she says, I don't ever, and we suppose she was going to say, I don't know if I can get past it, Raylla cuts her off with a kiss. And then their foreheads come together, and Raylla says, like, the cutest, most gayest thing ever, which is, I'm in this with you. We're going to figure it out together. Whoever you are, whoever you were, I'm in. And then I love Scylla's little, like, she can't help but let out a little laugh, but it's not a laugh. It's like an, oh my God, this woman kind of laugh.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what happens, no matter what anybody else thinks, I'm with you. It's so Raylla. She's basically just said, I'm 110% in this. I don't care what you did in the past, who you were. I'm here for you. So it's basically a declaration of love without a declaration of love.
This is Raylla making her choice, like Byron said. Like, if you love someone and you're willing to fight for them, go fight for them. And that's what Raylla's doing. What's happening in the scene is she's actively choosing Scylla, while Scylla is taking a baby step towards choosing Raylla by admitting her feelings. So while it's a tiny baby step, like it's big for her. But Raylla, again, is lesbian Jesus. She's just like, here it all is on the. I'm putting it all on the line, and Scylla gave her like a crumb.
They're taking the same size step in
for their own perspective.
For
basically.
their own perspective.
Yeah, so that's what's happening here. So this is a big moment, and I love that throughout this speech when Raylla is like laying her lesbian Jesus A game on, like Scylla's eyes are closed. Like she's really like taking this in
and soaking it in
and sitting with it. So instead of like call back to their other conversation where she's just her head and is with the Necro Lab, she's with Raylla in this moment.
She's so still, like the entire conversation.
Yeah, and it's very different from their other intimate moments they've had up to this point. Like this is like Scylla's sitting with all of this, and it's only when Raylla says "whoever you are" does Scylla does the laugh, because and she opens her eyes at that moment and like looks at Raylla, whose eyes are closed. So that to me is again like cue State of Grace by Taylor Swift, because Scylla did not ever expect to hear this from anybody, and here's Raylla. I never expected to see you coming. And here's Raylla just telling her all this stuff, like very flat out and honestly. It's like Raylla's too good to be real. And Scylla's like acknowledging that in this moment. So it's very beautiful.
It really is. It's one of my favorite scenes of the entire show. The way that they did everything with it, from the camera work to the lighting to the acting, everything. It was just really, it was amazing.
Yep. Never saw you coming. I'll never be the same again. That's what's going on in Scylla's head right now.
Yep.
And yeah, and it's her again making a baby step, but it's very big for Scylla, which is why she was like freaking out about even taking the baby step. But she did it, which was it's just huge. And I wonder too with Scylla, you know, again, we keep talking about like the Dodger thing and how Scylla was very much a good Dodger, where she never got attached. Like this is potentially her first attachment ever.
It is.
Outside of like familial, like her parents, like outside of that, I think this is her first attachment, and her taking a baby step towards making an actual attachment, which is a huge deal for her.
Like, yeah, she dated Porter, but I don't think that was
we saw that in the last episode. She was not attached to Porter at all. She's like you're a friend, we can have fun, but I'm not going to get attached to you because we're Dodgers. Like, why would we get attached? But Porter failed hard at the Dodger motto, but Scylla didn't. She's always Dodger survival mode, and this is her breaking that training for Raylla, and she's actively choosing to do that in this moment, which I think is the biggest thing for Scylla. Like Raylla is actively choosing Scylla over everybody else, and Scylla is making an active choice to choose Raylla in this small little baby step for her.
So it's almost it is in a way like they're making their own little pact or their own little world.
Yeah. Raylla is making the leap, and Scylla makes the baby step for their little pack. Like again, not keeping the illusion intact. I think that they're both making that illusion a little bit more concrete and rooted in reality. Exactly. At least in Scylla's mind, because in Scylla's mind, this is an illusion of it's just the mission kind of thing, but she's making it more real and making, again, to use the tree, putting a root in the ground for this, something that's stable and tethered to reality by telling Raylla all of this versus just like the illusion of, you know, we're dating or whatever because of the mission, which was like, we talked about that in the last episode. So this is Scylla making them dating like a real thing.
I feel like it's almost like something that was non-corporeal and becomes solid.
Exactly. Right.
So
it's illusion making it real.
It just steps into reality.
Exactly. So this is where it comes out of the toxic territory.
Yeah, and this is where and like Amalia has said, it's when Scylla starts to make the decision to go down the road of commitment.
Right. And we will get to Scylla's big decision in the next episode, but this is the baby step that was huge and monumental for her.
Yes.
Anything else about this scene?
I feel like I could talk about it all day, but I think we should go to the boys.
Last thing before we exit. The last shot is a giant wide shot of them in a giant live oak. Again, because we can't end a Scylla and Raylla scene without a wide shot of them under a live oak.
That's so beautiful.
Yes, and unlike the other scene where it was just them haloed in the gold light is everywhere in the frame. And like the leaves from the canopy of the tree is very much like at the top of the frame versus like
Yeah, but first it is it being around them.
enclosing them, almost like they were trapped in that little bubble and like their bubble got bigger. So it's like symbolic in a way.
Yes.
And it was all because of Raylla. So that's why I think her light is in the scene and her light is everywhere because it's like Raylla's impact on Scylla is also the other read I have.
Gigantic.
Yeah, so live oaks and gold light. It's their thing now. But unfortunately, we have to leave them and go to the male witches. But, you know, they're leaving.
I don't know what they did after that. Like, what did they go do?
I don't know.
Elliot!
I think Raylla needs a nap, to be honest. Just like, can we go to sleep?
That's what they did. They went and took a nap.
They went and took a nap because Raylla needs to sleep. And
I also think that Scylla went back and talked about that suit because there's a moment when they're having that where Scylla's head is in necro, I have to go save my own ass land. When they're having that one conversation where you just, the angle of Amalia's head, you're just like, oh, well, that's a perfect view.
Yeah, she's like, this is nice, but I don't have time to I can't think about this right now. There's a body in the lab. I have to go investigate.
So I think she like made Raylla put the suit back on.
Well, yeah, Raylla's still wearing the suit in that scene.
What is my brain? Yes, she is.
She's like, sleep in the suit.
Sleep in the suit. No, sleep out of the suit is what happened.
They both needed to sleep after that.
Yeah, they did.
Clusterfuck of a night. So anyway, so we go to the male witches and they're leaving to go back to wherever their finishing school is. And they're hanging out, saying goodbye to the women. And Tally and Garrett are flirting, of course, and they can't keep their hands off each other because they're Tally and Garrett. And then Byron gives Raylla a copy of the Wooing Witches book. And he's like, here you go. You know all our tricks now. And she's like, I'm Lesbian Jesus. I don't need tricks, Byron, but thanks. This will make me laugh at night. Then something pretty significant happens where Witchfather shows up and he corners Raylla and he gives her the Scourge Porter Maid. And he's like, I don't think any other witch deserves this more than you. And so this like you can see the way Raylla takes this information. This really meant a lot to her to get this. I don't know. I guess it was like, again, the whole episode was really confirmation to Raylla that she tried her best, you know, and everybody else can see that too. And, you know, it wasn't this failure. Like you did your best. You just have limits. And so I think this is all kind of like confirmation of that. And she gets the Scourge Porter was making. And from there, she hugs Byron and they go off and say their goodbye. And then Alder shows up, rolls up next to Witchfather. Like they weren't having wild sexcapades the night before. And she's like, see, I made the right call with Beltane, you know, because who are we without our customs, our way of life? If we can't take the risk of being who we are, we've already lost. And look, no attacks. And Witchfather, who like when she was talking about the spree when they were giving the Porter eulogy, he kept like giving her side eye, and he does it, and he does it again here, and he's like, "For now, Sarah, for now." And there's ominous music in the background.
Witchfather knows something.
Yeah, he's like, okay, Sarah, but for now, we'll see. And then Mama Cassia rolls up and breaks up the goodbyes. She's like, okay, guys, get back to the training. You got 10 minutes to the training room? And then she looks around. She's like, 5 minutes. This is gross. Get back. We got things to do. The scourges are activated. Come on. So Tally and Garrett kiss like 5 more times before they part. And then he cuts to Abigail's dudes who are just like, where is Abigail? Where's Abigail? And Bree, where is Abigail? Where is she? What's Abigail doing?
Abigail is practicing.
With who?
With her scourge. But wait, no, she's not there like right at the beginning though.
Oh, she's there.
She's there. She was watching Abigail practice. But yes, Libba does walk up in a very Libba and Abigail dialogue time.
Yep.
The homunculus returns. Here to practice lassoing for the life of a cowhand. The stink would suit you.
Animal insults, always.
The verbal sparring. And then Abigail comes back with, a little bit. But what I like about this scene is that they both kind of get down to business and just murder themselves some mannequins together.
I love they both make the comment, like Liva's like, Where did you not see your dudes off? And Abigail's like, no, of course not.
I got what I needed.
Yeah. And Liv was like,
And Liv
yeah,
was like, me too.
me too. So shared misandry. Love it.
Yep, love it.
Also, they were sneaking out to see each other, but whatever. That's fine. Whatever.
They were totally meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But then everybody else walks in, and Tally thinks that Abigail's going to do better than her today because she's just determined. You can just read it all over her. Raylla's quiet, and then Abigail asks her, hey, do you know how to use that thing? And Lesbian Jesus, this is a Lesbian Jesus moment right here. She raises her eyebrow
Yes.
and then fucks up a dummy.
It's cocky as fuck. I love it.
And then she blows her hair out of her face.
That improv moment is so good.
That is so good. It was so good, Taylor.
And she's bathing in her light right now. So like
she is. Everything is just bathed in Raylla
yep,
light.
That's so good.
And Abigail says, well, I guess she does know how to use it. And it's like, damn right she does.
She's Lesbian
Do
Jesus.
not question Lesbian Jesus' fighting prowess.
Hydrate yourself, Abigail.
Go hydrate, Abigail. This takes us to another scene with Raylla-ish.
Yeah, quote unquote. Raylla's doppelganger.
Yes. So we see Scylla come into her barracks room, and she finds Raylla on the bed, and she's surprised because aren't you supposed to be in training? But she doesn't really question it, and she goes over, hops on the bed, and is like starts to kiss Raylla, but Raylla isn't kissing her back.
No.
So she keeps going. And then finally, when Raylla does kiss her back, she pushes Scylla down on the bed and starts strangling her.
Why is everyone always strangling Scylla? Stop it.
That's literally in my notes. Why is everyone trying to strangle Scylla?
I hate it.
So she is fighting the whole strangulation, but of course she can't really do anything. And then Raylla, who is, spoiler alert, not Raylla, lights her face with a lighter, and it's a middle-aged spree agent instead.
Yeah.
And if that's not creepy, I don't know what is.
It's so creepy.
But then the spree agent is there to warn her, you're supposed to be luring her to us, not to you. Mm-hmm. So they see everything. And they know that Scylla's caught the feels, and they're warning her off from that, telling her, you've already made one mistake that we've had to clean up, and we won't put up with another one. Very importantly, she says, Porter, who do you think cleaned that up?
Yep.
So we know that the spree had a hand in covering Scylla's ass with Porter. So that's why Dead Body Porter lied.
Yep.
And now I'm super curious about the magic that they used to pull that off. But then the spree agent mentions the wedding the Bellwethers are having and tells Scylla to get herself invited. Just when it seems like Scylla's about to pass out from being strangled, the spree agent releases her and says, and Scylla, don't mess this one up. I'm not okay with this.
No.
That's got to be disconcerting. You think you're making out with your girlfriend, and then all of a sudden she's strangling you, and then she isn't her.
Okay, like two things about this. So the strangling piece. So the spree agent starts strangling Scylla with her hands.
Manually, and then goes to using work.
Yeah, like sub-vocally. Like, after a while, she's holding Scylla there without saying anything, just magically. So that's wild.
But then she starts, like, she's saying all of these things.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Her. How is she doing that?
You gotta be one powerful spree lady.
Second thing, I love that this, because the spree, like you mentioned, sees everything like Tansy. They see all. And I love that this spree agent knew not to wear her army jacket properly in order to be a convincing cosplayer of Raylla. So she's like, oh, your jacket's half on. It must be Raylla. So I love the detail from the spree agent.
Which is better than when Scylla cosplayed as Helen Graves, because she got the uniform all wrong.
Right. I guess some spree agents are pretty good spies, because this one did their recon homework and was like, all right, I know what to do.
Oh, yeah. This is like master spy spree agent, and Scylla's just... This is the only spree agent that can spy.
Right. So I love that detail that she's like, to be Raylla, I have to look like Raylla.
Exactly.
I love it. And also, good on you, Scylla. You got the ending scene another episode in a row. 4 episodes in a row. Well played.
Yes. It's too bad you were being strangled during it, but sure.
I mean, I hate that, but good on you, ending the show yet again.
Yeah, I do love every Scylla scene.
I mean,
You,
yes. Ugh, no, the gaslighting scene I
the
hate.
gaslighting scenes
I
we
don't
hate.
love that scene.
I
Yeah,
love parts of that scene, the scenes that are not gaslighting.
I hate that whole scene.
I mean,
But
the parts that are where she's not.
I like every other scene in this episode except that one.
It is very painful. I guess I just try to look for the positive where there's only gaslighting.
Right. I get why she's doing it. I hate watching it.
Yeah, it's just awful.
It's the worst. But alrighty, so time to recap the episode real quick. Main points.
So much lying. So much lying on Scylla's part. The lying, the gaslighting, but we do see Scylla start to choose Raylla when Raylla is like already 1000% in and has the U-Haul parked outside.
Correct. Aside from Scylla, in the episode we see Beltane and what the Beltane festival looks
Mhm.
like. We get confirmation from Sarah Alder, who, like, despite the spree running amok and killing witches, is like, you know, this is our cultural thing. It's a big holiday. It means a lot to us. We're doing it anyway. And I think from Alder's perspective, as we've heard with Beltane, it's used to like charge the witches and make them more powerful. So I think as a strategic maneuver to combat the spree, this needed to happen from like a political perspective as well. So, but that choice I think came with a consequence, because you see that not everybody was really cool with this choice of choosing power over safety, as we saw with Petra Bellwether, who's suspicious of this whole thing, and we kind of see the start of maybe a coup happening with her, and even Witchfather, who was like, really, we're gonna do this even though we should be fighting the spree and being safe, but
Mhm.
they did it anyway. And so because they did Beltane, we got Tally losing her V cards, a good on Tally. Everybody else got their charge, and Raylla got to deal with guilt and unloading her burdens of not being able to save Porter. So with Raylla, we get the limitations of her magic and her kind of coming to terms with that, and unburdening her reservations towards Scylla, which, like, her worst fears are confirmed in this episode about the fact that she doesn't really know Scylla, but Raylla, through her advice with her new friend Byron, finds out that Scylla is somebody that she thinks it's worth figuring all of those pieces out, no matter how messy. So Raylla makes the choice to do that, no matter who she is, kind of thing. And as you mentioned, Scylla kind of reciprocates a little bit with her baby step to choose Raylla. In the process, we get to see Isadora, finally,
Isadora,
who makes a dead body talk. So well played, ma'am. And
yes,
a little intro to necromagic and some necro seeds. So that was really nice for once to see the
yeah. We
necros.
get one little bit of necro.
One little bit of necro. But apparently there's a limitation to even their magic when it comes to something like reanimating a corpse. They need a ton of witch energy to do that. So that's why they had to do it during Beltane, which it's like the height of witch energy. So there's limitations to what necros can do, is what they're hinting at there.
Yes, Abigail has is the last piece, going through her arc of bearing the responsibility that has been pushed on her to succeed and be the ultra super soldier officer army girl eventually one day, and her trying to come to terms with her worst fear of failing at that, disappointing her family and herself, and just failing as a bellwether. That's what it's about. It's failing as a bellwether.
Yes, it really is. And last little piece about Abigail, big thing for her. She finally gained some respect for Raylla.
Yes. Not only does Rail make a commitment to going on this journey with Scylla, Scylla makes a baby step to give in to her feelings for Rael, and Abigail makes a commitment to the unit and to Rael specifically.
Raylla specifically. Yeah. So those are the big highlights from this episode. Oh, and the spree is pissed off at Scylla.
Oh, yeah, Spree is pissed.
She there for her shenanigans and cleaning up after her, and she needs to get invited to Abigail's cousin's wedding.
Yeah, which is going to be a fun time.
We will get into that later. No spoilers.
Oh, I'm going to love this episode. Coming up.
Yes. But that's episode 4. Everybody, hail Beltane.
Hail Beltane, but we need to give our award.
We do.
So I guess I'll go
You
first.
can go first.
My Big Witch Energy award for this episode is going to Isadora.
Woo! All right.
Because that girl was charged up and she didn't even need the sex to get charged up.
No, she doesn't.
She just needs work. Like,
Yeah.
she needs her experiments. And I respect that. She is a woman of science.
She is. Again, she doesn't care about people. It's about the science.
It's the first time we really get to see her personality just out there. And I love her so much. And she, reanimated a dead corpse with, the help of other necros. But I loved her teaching. I love how happy she was in those moments where she's teaching. And I wish we got more Isadora.
I know. That's why I am determined to bring her up every episode, because she deserves a spotlight.
She does.
She does. All right. I totally respect your Isadora choice. I honestly struggled with this episode for Big Witch energy. So I'm going to give it to Sarah Alder, actually.
I knew you would.
Because she had many Big Witch energy moments, mostly with Mama Bellwether. So first point goes to when she's like, oh, there's danger. We're doing Beltane anyway. So that whole power move, Spree be damned, was Big Witch energy. Her taking the whiskey away from Petra was also great.
Damn, that was such a move.
Again, she's like, let me reintroduce myself. I'm the OG Big Witch energy.
And Lynn did that. Was like, hey, what if we do whiskey and I take the whiskey away from her? So that was a Lynn thing.
And then drinks it herself. Then she downs her own drink. It's great.
I love that Lynn came up with that.
Big Witch energy move. So I love that. But also, she mostly gets it for her climax scene at the sex party, because again, the synchronizing with the biddies, literally summoning a swarm of bats, and enough power to fuel Isadora's experiment. Because it's not till we see that does the bird be like, all right, cool, I got the energy, let's go. So that was mostly because of Alder. So she gets Biggest Witch Energy Award for all of that. But go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just saying, I completely respect your choice, and I knew that's what you were going to do. And I knew I had to go in a different direction. So
yeah, I was thinking Isadora, but I'm like, Isadora is just being Isadora. It's not really Big Witch energy. This is just her being her. So I was just so happy to see her on screen. But I have to give honorable mention to the little necro canary, because that thing, without being commanded, made Porter talk. And then it literally fucks off out of the lab of its own accord and just flies over the sex party into God knows where. So I love the bird who's just like, I'm done. Bye. And literally leaves. So
the yellow necro canary.
The necro canary gets honorable Biggest Witch energy for just the way it behaved, and I love it.
All right. Well, you guys need to tell us who your winner for Big Witch Energy Award.
Yeah, let us know if you agree or disagree with us, or, there's anyone else out there that deserves the title for this episode.
Yes.
And if you have any songs for characters, please send them to us and we can put a playlist together and share with everybody.
Yeah, that sounds like the fabulous idea.
Yeah. And also, if you have any other tertiary characters you would like us to give what were they doing off screen moments to, let us know, except Porter. We will reject that real fast.
Yes, I'll reject it out of hand.
Hardcore. No offense, but we're not doing that. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed.
Yes, thanks for listening.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. And with that, we've been Big Witch Energy. If you like this episode, check out all of our other episodes right here on YouTube. Please comment below, and subscribe for more amazing content. Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.